Chapter 3205. In Heaven Punishment City, the three great Tianqing family's warriors appeared at almost the same time and confronted each other. Bang, bang, bang. Powerful auras collided in the air, creating earth-shattering noises. The warriors of the three families did not back down. Instead, they all stepped forward. QL-11. The atmosphere was gloomy and stifling. Everyone's eyes trembled, not daring to breathe. At this time, everyone could feel the tension of an arrow on a bowstring. As long as the three parties made a move, it would lead to the most direct and tragic battle. The Tianqing family was the core force of the Myriad Domains Guild. Everyone in Heaven Punishment City knew that there were 5 great Tianqing families in the Myriad Domains Guild. These 5 great Tianqing families had been in constant friction in recent years. They competed with each other and occasionally had some small conflicts. However, this was the first time such a situation had occurred. The warriors that appeared were the elites of the Bing family, Lu family, and Yuan family that had accumulated over the years. If a war were to break out, all 3 sides would suffer losses, and the losses would definitely be disastrous. Such an outcome would not only be a blow to the 3 families, but also to the Myriad Domains Guild. The reason why the Myriad Domains Guild could be so powerful and famous was because of the existence of the Tianqing family. The serious consequences of a war between the 3 great Tianqing families could be imagined. What puzzled everyone the most was that the reason for the conflict between the 3 families was a young warrior who had just stepped into Heaven Punishment City. At this moment, everyone was most curious about the identity of Tian to be able to cause a conflict between the 3 families. Tian looked at the large group of cultivators from the 3 factions in the air and could not help but frown. He did not expect things to turn out this way. This made him even more puzzled. Why were the 3 families looking for him? Damn! Jean de Bayo, who was standing beside Tian, couldn't help but grimace and frown as he watched this scene. At this time, Bing Hongye, Lu Qingxian, and Yuan Tai all had ugly expressions. The 3 of them obviously did not expect things to turn out this way. Lu Qingxian, Yuan Tai, are you crazy? If we alert the Heavenly Executioner, it won't do any good for our 3 clans. Bing Hongye took a step forward and said in a deep voice. Her pretty face was tense, and it was obvious that she was being very careful. In the current situation, a single mistake would lead to a great tragedy. Actually, at this moment, Bing Hongye was very happy to see the Heavenly Punishment Guards appear. But strangely, the Heavenly Punishment Guard did not appear even after a long time. Bing Hongye, Tian is the person our ancestor wants. Today, our Lu family must take him away at all costs. Lu Qingxian frowned, stepped forward, and said in a cold voice. He was very smart. He did not want to start a war with the Bing family and the Yuan family, so he brought out the Lu family ancestor. However, Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai's eyes narrowed at the same time, and their expressions changed. No wonder Lu Qingxian was so insistent. It turned out that the ancestor of the Lu family wanted to see Tian. Coincidentally, Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai had also appeared at the behest of their old ancestor. Lu Qingxian, this silver-haired kid, is also the person our Yuan family ancestor wants. Today, our Yuan family will not take a step back. Yuan Tai thought for a moment, and his aura surged crazily, like a stormy sea, extremely terrifying. Bing Hongye's beautiful eyes flickered when she saw this scene, and the icy aura around her became even sharper, like a storm, extremely murderous. She did not expect that the Lu family ancestor and the Yuan family ancestor would also want to see Tian. She could not help but wonder what Tian's identity was. He had just entered the Heavenly Punishment City, and yet he had alarmed the 3 heavenly executioners at the same time. Tian frowned, and his heart was even more puzzled. The Heavenly Punishment family was already very terrifying, and the 3 great families' old ancestors were definitely the top figures in the Myriad territory. Why would these top figures want to see him? Bing Hongye, it seems that you are also here at the behest of the Bing family ancestor. Lu Qingxian looked at Bing Hongye and said in a deep voice, in that case, let's do it. As soon as he finished his sentence, The atmosphere in the place became heavy. Everyone's nerves tensed up, and their hearts were in their throats. "Let's fight!" At the same time, Yuan Tai's eyes turned cold, and he let out a low roar, and his aura surged violently. Bing Hongya's beautiful eyes quivered as she took a few steps back. Although she did not say anything, it was a tacit acknowledgement of the start of the battle. This! The crowd's eyes widened, and their expressions turned sluggish, unable to utter a single word. Who would have thought that the three great families would really start a war? Bang! 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 In the next instant, the martial artists of the three great families took a step forward, and the sky shook violently, as if the space was about to explode. Kill! 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 The martial artists of the three great families roared at the same time, and their figures moved at the same time. Stop! However, at that instant, a deep voice suddenly appeared in the sky, as if it contained an extremely terrifying force, causing the sky to tremble. Buzz! At this moment, everyone's expression changed. A loud roar rang in their ears, as though their eardrums were about to shatter. Puff, puff, puff. Countless people vomited blood on the spot, and their faces turned as white as a sheet. Niet Tion's eyes glistened, and his expression changed slightly. He did not expect someone to be able to unleash such a terrifying force under the influence of the heavenly punishing formation. Without a doubt, the person's strength had reached the peak ninth order pseudo-sacred realm. Besides, it seemed like his strength was not affected by the suppression of the heavenly punishing formation. But how was that possible? Even the star primary stones were affected by the suppression of the heavenly punishing formation. Besides, according to the Ghost Monarch, the heavenly punishing formation was one of the ancient 9 formations. What kind of person's strength was so terrifying that he was not affected by the suppression of the heavenly punishing formation? Under the suppression of the force, the martial artists of the 3 clans were knocked back simultaneously. Everyone was dumbfounded, and their bodies were drenched in cold sweat. The astonishment in their hearts was written all over their faces. Progenitor. Meanwhile, Bing Hongya's eyes flickered when she heard the voice. Her expression stiffened slightly, and she exclaimed in her heart. The voice belonged to the progenitor of the Bing clan. Bing Hongya did not expect the progenitor of the Bing clan to show up in person. Everyone kept quiet out of fear, and no one dared to make a move. Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai wore embarrassed expressions, and their hearts were filled with panic. Unbelievable, the heavenly punisher had shown up in person. Brother Lu, Brother Yuan, since you're here, you should at least say something. Following this, the voice of the progenitor of the Bing clan was heard once again. It was like a clap of thunder, but it was no longer as oppressive as before. It was obvious that the suppression was just to deter the crowd. As soon as the progenitor of the Bing clan finished his sentence, 2 other voices were heard. Brother Bing, Brother Yuan, it's been a while. Brother Bing, Brother Lu, it's been a while. 2 voices were heard almost at the same time, and their auras were no weaker than the progenitor of the Bing clan. Bing Hongya, Lu Qingxian, and Yuan Tai were dumbfounded when they heard the voices. Chapter 32:06. The 3 patriarchs had appeared at the same time. Everyone was stunned. Their expressions were sluggish, and they didn't react for a long time. The 5 Tianqing families were the most powerful forces in the Thousand Territories Association. Even the guildmaster of the Thousand Territories Association was afraid of them. The patriarchs of the 5 families were almost legendary figures. Everyone present only knew that there were great ancestor-level figures in the 5 great families, but no one had actually seen the 5 great ancestors. There was even a rumor in Tianqing City that the patriarchs of the 5 families were 5 old monsters who had lived for who knew how long. They might have died without anyone knowing. Because of this, the appearance of the 3 patriarchs at the same time shocked everyone. Their appearance had at least dispelled one rumor. They were still alive. Niet Tion was shocked when he heard the voices in the air. He hadn't thought that there would be so many peerless powerhouses in a small city like Tianqing City. Judging from their auras, the 3 patriarchs were definitely no weaker than the Juying Temple Master. Perhaps only a freak like eternally merciless could fight against the three patriarchs in the Thousand Territories. Brother Lu, Brother Yuan, you saw what happened just now, right? This young man called Nye Tian has made his choice. Are you still going to persist? At that moment, Ancestor Bing's voice rang out once more. His deep and powerful voice echoed through the air, as if it was coming from all directions. Ha ha! Ha ha! Brother Bing, it was just a joke between kids. Don't take it seriously. Patriarch Lu's voice was playful and forceful. This guy was indeed the patriarch of the Lu family. He was even more cunning than Lu Qingxian. He'd called what had happened a joke. Yes, Brother Bing, we all know how important this kid is to us. If what happened just now can decide who he belongs to, then it's too much of a joke, Patriarch Yuan continued, his tone threatening. The conversation between the three of them caused everyone to be stunned. Their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. Who would have thought that the three patriarchs would be so shameless? It seemed that Nye Tian was really important to them. Then there's nothing to talk about. After a moment of dead silence, Bing family's ancestor's voice rang out again. This time, it was extremely tough and carried a sharp aura. Then let's fight. Before the voice of the Bing family's ancestor faded away, the Yuan family's ancestor roared furiously. The Yuan family's old ancestor was obviously more ferocious and was about to start a fight. Since you insist, I will accompany you to the end. Then, the old ancestor of the Lu family spoke in a deep and cold voice. Everyone's eyes trembled. The shock in their hearts was written all over their faces. The three ancestral patriarchs were going to show up and fight. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. After thinking for a moment, he took a step forward and was about to say something. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a strange aura, causing his expression to change, and he was shocked on the spot. Boss, what's wrong? Jean de Bayo was originally watching with great interest, but he suddenly noticed that Nye Tian's expression was strange, so he couldn't help but frown and ask, Nye Tian, are you all right? Desolate Ghost also felt that something was wrong and asked curiously, this aura, could it be? Nye Tian was stunned for a few seconds before he reacted. He opened his mouth in a daze, but he couldn't finish his sentence. At this moment, he suddenly sensed a powerful aura approaching him. This aura was unfamiliar, but it made him feel an indescribable excitement. This feeling was like a soul resonance, but it was an unfamiliar soul resonance. Nye Tian was very sure that he had never encountered this aura before. The aura of the astral soul imprint, astral soul resonance. In the next moment, he finally spoke, his eyes trembling as he spoke in a daze. Astral soul resonance? Jean de Bayo stared at Nye Tian with a strange look on his face. He had no idea what Nye Tian was talking about. HM, could it be that Brother Tang is here? Desolate Ghost immediately reacted and frowned. Of course, he knew what the aura of the astral soul imprint was. It was a type of soul resonance between the astral lord and the astral lord. For now, it was called astral soul resonance. However, astral soul resonance only happened between the astral lord and the astral lord. There was no astral soul resonance between two astral lords. Hence, Nye Tian could feel the aura of the astral soul imprint, but Desolate Ghost could not. Desolate Ghost knew that aside from him, there was another astral lord. That was Tang 13. But didn't Tang 13 go to the vanishing shadow domain with Tang Yuyu? Why is she here? It's not Tang 13. Nye Tian frowned and shook his head solemnly. He was very familiar with Tang 13's aura, but the aura that was rushing over now was very unfamiliar. It was much stronger than Tang 13's. How is this possible? Desolate Ghost was stunned, and his expression froze. Could it be that aside from him and Tang 13, there were other astral lords? QL 11 Nye Tian was also stunned. He had only helped Desolate Ghost and Tang 13 merge with the forbidden astral soul. How could there be other astral lords? In the next moment, Nye Tian's eyes flickered as he came to a realization and exclaimed inwardly, I see. This astral lord that was rushing over was not created by him, but by the previous astral lord. When he understood this, Tion's expression darkened, and he stood rooted to the ground. A astral lord created by the previous astral lord. How terrifying must this person be? Xiaoho. At that moment, the three patriarchs in the void felt a strong and familiar aura at the same time. Their expressions changed, and they exclaimed in their hearts. They did not expect another patriarch to be here. This patriarch called Xiaoho was like them, a heavenly executioner. However, Xiaoho's strength was recognized as the strongest. More importantly, the reason why the three patriarchs were fighting over Tion was because of Xiaoho. The three did not expect Xiaoho to show up personally. Brother Bing, Brother Lu, Brother Yuan, if you guys fight today, I will be in deep trouble. At that moment, a voice resounded in the void. It was powerful and vast, like thunder falling from the sky. When everyone heard this voice, their eyes widened in shock. This aura was even stronger than the three patriarchs. At that moment, Tion's pupils constricted. His face froze, and he was shocked. When the voice resounded in the void, he felt the resonance of the astral soul in his body become even stronger. Without a doubt, this expert who suddenly appeared was an astral lord. Tion did not expect to meet the astral lord in Heaven Executioner City. Chapter 3207. One must accept defeat. The sudden arrival of a terrifying expert caused the atmosphere to become strange once again. Everyone kept quiet out of fear, not even daring to breathe too loudly. Even the ancestors of the Bing clan, Lu clan, and Yuan clan were silent. It was obvious that they were afraid of the newcomer. Brother Xiaoho, I did not expect you to come personally. After a long time, the Yuan family patriarch's voice rang out. His aura was much weaker than before. Brother Yuan, if I had not arrived, something big would have happened today. Xiaoho smiled faintly, his voice reverberating in the air. The Myriad Domain Association only has 5 heaven executioners. If the 3 of you start a fight, our association leader will make trouble for me. Brother Xiaoho came at the right time. How shall we deal with this matter? Brother Xiaoho, please decide, the Yuan family patriarch said seriously. I do not dare to say I will decide. I'm just giving you an idea, Xiaoho said with a smile. Brother Xiaoho, please speak. The 3 patriarchs said at the same time, wanting to see what Xiaoho would say. At this moment, Tion reacted. However, he frowned, his expression extremely strange. The name Xiaoho immediately made him think of the person Hua Yiru wanted him to find, Xiaoho Yao. Xiao Chan was not sure if this star venerate who just appeared was the Xiaoho Yao that Hua Yiru mentioned. However, he was certain that all this had something to do with this star venerate. Based on the reactions of the 3 patriarchs, they were very afraid of Xiaoho, even a little fearful. This showed that Xiaoho's strength was extraordinary. At this moment, the place was deathly silent. Everyone was waiting for Xiaoho to speak. After a long time, Xiaoho's voice finally rang out. His tone was deep and contained a hint of threat. You must accept defeat. Right after Xiaoho spoke, the entire place fell silent. The atmosphere was stifling. Xiaoho's meaning was clear. The bet between Tion, Bing Hongye, and the other 2 was still in effect. Tion wanted to leave with the Bing family patriarch. Many thanks, Brother Xiaoho. After a while, the Bing family patriarch laughed loudly. The Lu family ancestor and the Yuan family ancestor seemed to have disappeared. They did not move for a long time. Brother Lu, Brother Yuan, do you have anything to say about my decision? Xiaoho's voice rang out again, and there was a hint of pressure in his calm voice. No. Lu family ancestor and Yuan family ancestor remained silent for a while before finally answering. However, they were obviously not satisfied. But even if he was unwilling, what could he do? Xiaoho was the strongest among the 5 heaven executioners. Even if the Lu and Yuan family patriarchs teamed up, they might not be able to defeat him. Farewell. Then, the Yuan clan ancestor's voice rang out, and he left. Farewell. The patriarch of the Lu family also left. Tion had already decided to leave with forefather Bing, so there was no need for them to stay. As the 2 great masters left, the warriors of the Lu family and the Yuan family also left. Nie Tian's eyes flickered as he looked into the void. Although he could clearly sense the existence of that celestial lord, he could not determine its exact location. Brother Xiaoho, I will take my leave as well. At that moment, the patriarch of the Bing clan said in a deep voice, Red Leaf, take little friend Nie Tian away. Yes. Bing Hongye nodded quickly. Then, he looked at Nie Tian and prepared to take him away. Wait a minute. But at this moment, Xiaoho's voice rang out suddenly, making everyone freeze. Nie Tian, leave the two people beside you behind, Xiaoho said again. This time, he was talking to Nie Tian. Nie Tian could not see Xiaoho, but he had a strange feeling. It was as if there was a pair of invisible eyes staring at him in the dark. He had not expected Xiaoho to leave the desolate ghost and Jean de Bayo behind. Forefather Bing was also stunned. He was very confused. He did not know why someone like Xiaoho wanted these two brats. Senior, Nie Tian was stunned. His eyes narrowed, and he stepped forward to speak. However, Xiaoho interrupted him. Don't worry. I, Xiaoho Yao, am not shameless enough to harm two juniors, Xiaoho said seriously. Xiaoho Yao. When Nie Tian heard this name, he could not help but narrow his eyes, and his expression changed. This star venerate was really Xiaoho Yao. It was really the person that Hua Yiru wanted Nie Tian to find. It turned out that Hua Yiru actually wanted Nie Tian to find a star venerate. Clearly, Hua Yiru knew Xiaoho Yao's identity. Otherwise, he would not have trusted him so much. At this moment, Nie Tian was certain that Xiaoho Yao had been paying attention to them the moment they entered the Tianqing realm. Xiao Chen even felt that Xiaoho Yao might have known of his existence long ago. He just had not shown himself. Clearly, Xiaoho Yao was trying to reassure Nie Tian by revealing his identity. The two of you, let's go, Xiaoho Yao said again at this moment. Then, an image appeared in the air. The desolate ghost and Jean de Bayo looked at Nie Tian, waiting for him to speak. All right, Nie Tian thought for a while and nodded indifferently. Xiaoho Yao knew far more than Nie Tian expected. Clearly, he had a purpose in getting the desolate ghost and Jean de Bayo to go with him. Xiaoho Yao was a star venerate. Furthermore, he was someone recommended by Hua Yiru, so he was trustworthy. The desolate ghost and Jean de Bayo nodded. Then, they said their goodbyes to Nie Tian. Their figures flashed, flying toward the figure in the air. The three figures quickly vanished. Xiaoho Yao, what exactly are you planning? Nie Tian thought to himself as he looked at the sky. His eyes narrowed slightly. Xiao Chan was very curious about Xiaoho Yao's forbidden star soul. Also, why did Xiaoho Yao arrange everything earlier? After a while, Nie Tian's lips twitched as he thought to himself, don't think too much first. Everything will be clear when we meet the Bing clan's ancestor later. The storm ended just like that. After that, Nie Tian did not linger. He followed Bing Hongye to the ice residence. Along the way, Bing Hongye did not say a word. However, she could not help turning her head to look at Nie Tian many times, her eyes filled with doubt. Lord Nie Tian, do you know Senior Xiaoho? Bing Hongye finally could not help asking after entering the ice residence. Her beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at Nie Tian. She did not know Nie Tian's identity, but since the Bing clan's ancestor addressed Nie Tian as little friend, she was even more cautious, addressing Nie Tian as Lord. I don't know him. Nie Tian smiled and shook his head slightly. Bing Hongye was stunned, but she did not say anything. Instead, she led Nie Tian to the inner courtyard. After a while, the two arrived outside a hidden courtyard. The courtyard was not big, but it was very unique. There was a long, winding path leading to a secluded place. Hongye, you can go back now. Just at this moment, a deep voice came from the courtyard. It was the Bing clan's ancestor. Yes, Hongye will take her leave. Bing Hongye answered and left respectfully. Chapter 3208. The Heavens Executioner Tian Xing City, the ice house, inside an elegant courtyard. As soon as Nie Tian walked in, he was greeted by the refreshing fragrance of flowers. He narrowed his eyes and saw a white-haired old man sitting in a pavilion in the courtyard. At this moment, the old man was looking at Nie Tian with a smile on his face. His eyes were calm, and his face was kind, but he gave off an oppressive feeling that he wasn't angry. Nietion's heart skipped a beat. He felt like this elder was like a lion, emitting the aura of a powerhouse. Though this elder had a head full of white hair, his skin was smooth like a 20-year-old. The only exception was his eyes, which were sunken in and filled with wrinkles. It was as if they had been there for countless years. What surprised Nietion the most was that although this elder's aura was hidden, it was still powerful. This elder was not affected by the Heaven's Punisher array at all. How is this possible? Nietion's first reaction was disbelief as his eyes trembled. The Heaven's Punisher array was one of the ancient 9 arrays and could even suppress the cosmic stone. What was so strange about this elder? How was he not affected by the Heaven's Punisher array at all? My friend Nietion, you're here. At this moment, the white-haired elder spoke. His tone was calm, like a grandpa next door. Nietion calmed down, smiled faintly, and bowed slightly towards the old man. Greetings, Senior Bing. This elder was obviously Elder Bing of the Bing clan. My friend Nietion, you are too kind. Elder Bing chuckled and raised his hand, gesturing for Nietion to sit. Nietion didn't stand on ceremony. He walked into the gazebo and sat across from Elder Bing. He asked directly, Elder, why did you call me here? Little friend Nietion, is this your first time in Heaven Shing City? Bing clan's patriarch laughed and asked a question instead of answering Nietion's question. Yes, Nietion nodded. Nietion, how much do you know about Tian Shing City? Elder Icehouse asked. Not much, just the basics. Nietion smiled faintly and said, the Heaven Executioner City is where the headquarters of the Myriad Realms Guild is located. It's said that it's an ancient city that has existed since ancient times. The entire city is enveloped by a grand spell formation, making it impregnable. It seems like Nietion knows a lot. The patriarch of the Bing clan laughed as a strange light flashed in his eyes. He said, Nietion, my young friend, you must have sensed that the grand spell formation that covers the entire Heaven Shing City has a strong suppressive force on cultivators. Nietion nodded and asked, Senior, you don't seem to be affected by the spell formation. Why? He already had this question in his mind and wanted to ask. Now that Elder Bing brought it up, he naturally had to ask. Elder Bing seemed to have guessed that Nietion would ask this question. He smiled brightly and said, Because I am the Heaven Executioner. Heaven Executioner? Nietion was startled. He didn't know what this meant. Heaven Executioner, the array door. At the same time, Ghost Emperor's voice was heard. He screamed in shock. Nietion was taken aback once again, confusion filling his face. He knew what the array door was, but he didn't know what the Heaven Executioner meant. An array usually had an array door and an array eye. The array door was the entrance to the array and also the channel for the array to absorb energy from the outside world. The array eye was where the array's energy gathered and was also the weakest point of the array. Any formation would require energy to operate. As time passed, the array's energy would weaken. The purpose of the formation gate was to absorb energy and maintain the formation. Nietion, you should know what the array door is. Seeing Nietion's confused expression, Elder Bing faintly smiled and said, The Heaven Executioner is the array door of the Heaven Punisher array. Nietion's eyes narrowed at Elder Bing's words. This was the first time he heard of someone being the array door. However, there was nothing strange about this. The Ghost Emperor had refined his own body into a large formation. The Heaven Punisher array sure is magical. Using a cultivator as the array door, not only can the array operate, but it can also strengthen the array's defense. Ghost Emperor's voice was heard. Nietion frowned, slowly understanding the mysteries of the Heaven Punisher array. The array door was also the weakest point of the array, but using a cultivator as the array door avoided this weakness. Moreover, a cultivator's strength could be increased. This meant that the entire array's strength could also be increased. Nietion, now you understand why this old man's strength is not suppressed by the Heaven Punisher array. Elder Bing smiled faintly. Nietion nodded, but he remained silent. Elder Bing was a heaven executioner, the array door of the Heaven Punisher array. He was part of the array and the array itself. Of course, he wouldn't be suppressed by the array. This way, the entire Heaven Punisher array was almost perfect. All the cultivators that entered the array would be suppressed, but the Heaven Executioner's strength would not be suppressed. In fact, it would even increase. Therefore, the Heaven Executioner was almost invincible in the Heaven Punisher array. Even a powerhouse like Eternally Merciless would be suppressed to the Heavenly Emperor realm after entering the Heaven Punisher city. How could he fight a Heaven Executioner? The more Nyetian thought about it, the more terrifying the Heaven Punisher array became. With a Heaven Executioner guarding the Heaven Punisher city, it was an impenetrable fortress. After a short while, Nyetian calmed down and said in a deep voice, "Senior, if you have something to say, just say it." He understood that there must be a reason why Elder Bing told him so much. Young friend Nyetian, the Heaven Executioners are powerful and have high statuses. However, as a Heaven Executioner, there are many things we can't do. Elder Bing suddenly looked at Nyetian and sighed. The Heaven Executioners are the array door of the Heaven Punisher array. Therefore, they cannot leave the Heaven Punisher city. Nyetian's eyes narrowed and his brows furrowed. A cultivator would be very miserable if he was trapped in a city for his entire life, especially someone like Elder Bing, who had lived for millions of years. He would probably go crazy if he stayed in a city for too long. Not being able to leave the Heaven Punisher city is actually nothing. Then Elder Bing continued, "As a Heaven Executioner, the most painful thing is having to endure the pain of the Heaven Punisher at all times." The pain of the Heaven Punisher? Nyetian's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. He immediately understood something. Elder Bing wanted to see him because he had something to ask of him, and this matter must be related to the pain of the Heaven Punisher. Chapter 3209. The power of Heaven's punishment in Nyetian went blank for a moment and couldn't help but frown as a look of shock appeared on his face. Could the power of Heaven's punishment that Ghost Emperor spoke of be related to the pain of Heaven's punishment that Forefather Bing spoke of? However, Ghost Emperor went silent and didn't move for a long time. Nyetian's eyes flickered as he turned to the patriarch of the Bing clan and asked, "Senior, can you explain yourself?" Forefather Bing nodded and said, "The Heaven Executioner is the gate of the Heaven's punishment formation. They need to absorb an enormous amount of energy every day to support the formation's operation. During this process, the martial body of the Heaven Executioner has to endure extreme pressure. Every time the energy circulates, the Heaven's punishment formation will produce a type of energy called Heaven's punishment that accumulates inside the Heaven Executioner's body. The Heaven's punishment formation is extremely powerful. Its aura is violent. It constantly oppresses the Heaven Executioner's body. Although this pressure won't kill the Heaven Executioner, it will make the Heaven Executioner feel extreme pain at every moment." As he spoke, Forefather Bing suddenly stretched out his arm, revealing his arm. Nyetian's eyes narrowed in shock. Bloody wounds appeared on Forefather Bing's arm, but they healed over and over again. Such a scene was incomparably painful to watch. The Heaven's punishment formation tore at the Heaven Executioner's body, and the Heaven's punishment formation healed the Heaven Executioner's body. During this tearing and healing process, the Heaven Executioner was enduring unimaginable pain. If this pain was only for a short period of time, it would be bearable. But this pain persisted for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. It was enough to drive someone crazy. And yet Tian frowned, and a grim expression appeared on his face. He didn't think that the price of being a Heaven Executioner would be this high. After a short while, Nyetian calmed down and looked at the patriarch with a burning gaze. "Senior, why are you telling me this?" Vaguely, he had an ominous premonition. "Nyetian, do you know why the ancestors of the Liu family and the Yuan family are so interested in you?" The ancestor of the Bing family asked with a strange expression. The ancestor of the Liu family and the ancestor of the Yuan family are also Heaven Executioners. Nietion's eyes narrowed as he asked in surprise. Forefather Bing nodded. The look in his eyes was even weirder. Don't tell me you think I can help you get rid of the pain of the heavenly punishment? Nietion's eyes trembled. He immediately understood and asked in surprise. The three patriarchs were all heavenly executioners, so they had to endure the pain of the punishment. They were so persistent with Nietion that they didn't even hesitate to fall out with him. They must have felt that Nietion was helping them. That's right. The ancestor of the Bing clan nodded and said, "Someone told us that your martial body is the rare heaven punishment body. It can withstand the power of heaven punishment." Nietion's eyes narrowed, and his face instantly became gloomy. He had never heard of the heaven punishment body. It was too strange. But he could tell that the forefather of the Bing clan was using him as a vessel and wanted to transfer the power of the heaven punishment body to him. The power of the heaven punishment body was so terrifying that even an expert like the forefather of the Bing clan could not withstand it. How could Nietion withstand it? "My young friend Nietion, you must help me." The forefather of the Bing clan saw Nietion's panic. His face darkened and his eyes burned with passion. "Senior, I would like to ask, who told you that I have the heaven punishment body?" Nietion took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He asked in a low voice. No matter what, he had to calm the forefather of the Bing clan first. "Xiaoho." The forefather of the Bing clan hesitated. The corner of his mouth twitched as he said a name. Upon hearing this name, Nietion's pupils constricted as he exclaimed, "Him." He had never thought that it would be Xiahou Yao who told the forefather of the Bing clan that he had the heaven punishment body. He had guessed correctly. It was all Xiahou Yao's doing. Xiahou Yao had sensed his arrival the moment he had set foot in the heaven punishment realm. However, he did not understand why Xiahou Yao would tell the three forefathers that he had the heaven punishment body. Wasn't this harming Nietion? No wonder Nietion had been targeted by the three heaven punishment families as soon as he had arrived in heaven punishment city. "Senior, if my guess is correct, Senior Xiahou Yao is also a heaven executioner?" Nietion calmed down and suddenly asked with a frown. "Yes." The forefather of the Bing clan nodded, as if he knew what Nietion wanted to say. He said directly, "But Xiahou Yao is an exception among the 5 heaven executioners. His martial body is not suppressed by the power of the heaven punishment body. According to him, he found a cultivator with the heaven punishment body. Every once in a while, he would transfer the power of the heaven punishment body to that cultivator." Nietion's expression froze when he heard the forefather of the Bing clan. He was speechless for a long time. This Xiahou Yao had really screwed him over. He was giving him to the forefather of the Bing clan as a vessel for the power of the heaven punishment body. "My young friend Nietion, only you can save me in this world." The forefather of the Bing clan's eyes blazed as he said solemnly, "Don't worry, I won't transfer all the power of the heaven punishment body to you. You only need to help me endure half of it." "Half?" Nietion was taken aback, his expression extremely grim. Given his strength, how could he endure half the power of the heaven punishment body? Who knew how long the forefather of the Bing clan had been a heaven executioner? The power of the heaven punishment body he had accumulated in his body was unimaginably terrifying. Half the power of the heaven punishment body was enough to kill Nietion in an instant. "Senior, I really want to help you, but..." Nietion frowned and finally spoke. However, he was interrupted halfway by the Ghost Emperor. Nietion agreed to it. The Ghost Emperor suddenly squealed, his eyes trembling with excitement. "Huh?" Nietion was taken aback, and his face froze. The Ghost Emperor was asking him to agree to the forefather of the Bing clan. Wasn't this asking for death? "Nietion, the power of the heaven punishment body is good stuff. The most terrifying power of the entire heaven punishment formation is the power of the heaven punishment body. This is the condensed essence of the heaven punishment formation's power. It's a type of extremely powerful, sacred power," the Ghost Emperor said excitedly, his voice trembling with excitement. "What?" Nietion was taken aback once again. He had never imagined that the power of the heaven punishment body was a type of sacred power. But if the power of the heaven punishment body was sacred power, then why did the forefather of the Bing clan and the others have to endure the pain of the heaven punishment body every day? Yet, Tian, the power of the heaven punishment body is extremely powerful. It's an extremely pure, sacred power. But for ordinary cultivators, this kind of power cannot be absorbed. Instead, it will accumulate in the martial body and become a form of oppression, the Ghost Emperor continued. But you have the Star Origin Stone. Your martial body is filled with the power of the stars, so it's very easy for you to absorb and fuse with the power of the heaven punishment body. The Ghost Emperor said anxiously. Tian's eyes narrowed, as if he had understood something. So Xiao Yao had asked the three forefathers to find him to give him the power of the heaven punishment body. To others, the power of the heaven punishment body was a form of oppression that would cause them to suffer the pain of the heaven punishment body. But to Nye Tian, the power of the heaven punishment body was an extremely powerful force that could be absorbed by the martial body. Nye Tian's eyes flashed with excitement when he realized this. Chapter 32:10. Body tempering. After hearing the Ghost Emperor's words, Nye Tian's gaze turned fiery as his eyes flickered with a sharp glow. It turned out that the force of the heavenly punishment was extremely useful to him. Nye Tian, my friend, do you agree to help? Forefather Bing's eyes turned fiery as he asked excitedly after seeing the strange expression on Nye Tian's face. Nye Tian recovered his composure and said with a faint smile, I'll try my best, senior. Thank you, Nye Tian. Forefather Bing's eyes widened after hearing Nye Tian's answer. He rose from his seat and bowed toward Nye Tian. Senior, you're too kind. Nye Tian stood up and let out a calm smile. Since that's the case, young friend Nye Tian, let's get started, the patriarch of the Bing clan said impatiently. He had been enduring the pain of the heavenly punishment all the time. Now that there was someone standing in front of him who could alleviate his pain, he could not wait any longer. Sure. Nye Tian nodded with a smile. He too was looking forward to seeing how the force of the heavenly punishment would improve his martial physique. Following this, Forefather Bing and Nye Tian did not waste any time. They sat down with their legs crossed and began to transfer the force of the heavenly punishment. Forefather Bing took a deep breath as the 9 yuan meridians in his body began to circulate. Streams of the heavenly punishment became violent like ferocious beasts. Bang! 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 In the next instant, the wounds on Forefather Bing's body burst open, causing blood to pour out from his body, turning him into a man made of blood. However, he ignored it and continued to circulate his yuan meridians even more crazily, causing the heavenly punishment to become even more violent, as if the streams of force were trying to tear him apart. Following this, streams of heavenly punishment began to leak out from the pool of blood. Nye Tian, my friend. At that instant, Forefather Bing let out a roar to remind Nye Tian. Nye Tian agreed. The yuan meridians in his body began to circulate, and the aura around him was released. At the same time, he released his blood chi and began to absorb the power of the heavenly punishment. At first, the power of heaven's punishment was a little repulsive. However, after a while, it began to flow into Nye Tian's body. It really is the heaven punisher physique. Bing family's old ancestor could feel the heaven punisher energy around him weakening. His heart shook as he exclaimed in joy. In his opinion, the fact that Nye Tian could absorb the power of the heaven punishment meant that he had the heaven punishment physique. If it was any other warrior, they would not be able to absorb the heaven punishment energy. The heaven punishment energy that leaked out would flow back into the Bing family's old ancestor's body. Following that, the transfer of the power of the heaven punishment slowly stabilized. Nye Tian could feel the power of heaven's punishment rushing into his body like a ferocious beast, wreaking havoc. In an instant, his meridians and bones were impacted as if they were about to shatter. However, in the next moment, the power of the stars began to take effect, slowly fusing the power of the heavenly punishment into his meridians and bones. As the power of the heavenly punishment slowly poured in, Tian felt like his strength was about to explode. He could feel that his martial body was rapidly growing stronger, tempering the heavenly punishment physique. Just at this moment, the Ghost Emperor's excited voice rang out. Tian, your martial body will become even stronger. Tian was excited, but his martial body remained stable. At this moment, he understood why Xiahou Yao, as the Heaven Punisher, did not suffer the pain of the heavenly punishment. A strong holy energy, like the power of the heavenly punishment, would suppress other cultivators. However, the power of the stars could fuse with this energy. Xiahou Yao was a star venerate, and his body was filled with the power of the stars. Of course, he could fuse with the power of the heavenly punishment. As for the so-called heaven punishment physique, that was probably just something Xiahou Yao said to scare people. Half a day later, beads of sweat the size of beans started to appear on Tian's forehead. Even if the power of the stars could be fused with the power of the heavenly punishment, Tian's strength was limited, and he could not withstand too much of the power of the heavenly punishment at one time. However, the power of the heavenly punishment that he absorbed was only directly fused with a very small portion. Most of the power was stored in the sacred spirit blood seal. Tian, it's about time. Sensing that Tian's martial body was about to reach its limit, the Ghost Emperor hurriedly reminded him. Senior, Tian immediately called out, telling the Bing family's patriarch to stop releasing the power of the heavenly punishment. The Bing family's patriarch's eyes trembled slightly, and he did not hesitate to stop releasing the power of the heavenly punishment. A moment later, both Tian and the Bing family's patriarch exhaled at the same time. Their faces regained some color, and they stood up. My young friend Tian, are you all right? The Bing family's patriarch looked at Tian with an unconcealable smile. It was obvious that Tian had helped him withstand a lot of the power of the heavenly punishment. I'm fine. Tian nodded with a smile. His expression was slightly ugly, but his aura was stronger than before. At this moment, he was like a person who had eaten too much, and his martial body felt like it was about to explode. However, this feeling would not last for long, and would soon disappear. Thank you, my young friend Tian. The power of the heavenly punishment in my body has weakened significantly. The Bing family's patriarch expressed his gratitude sincerely, and his expression was a little emotional. This was the first time in many years that he felt so relaxed. He had not expected Tian to have withstood so much of the power of the heavenly punishment. Initially, he had only planned to let Tian bear half of the power of the heavenly punishment. However, he had transferred 3/4 of the power of the heavenly punishment to Tian. Following this, the Bing family's divine sense swept across Tian's body, and his eyes narrowed as he exclaimed in shock, "How is this possible?" He suddenly realized that Tian's current strength was already at the rank 4 pseudo sacred realm. He clearly remembered that Tian was at the rank 3 pseudo sacred realm before this. Could it be that the power of the heavenly punishment did not suppress Tian, and instead increased Tian's strength? This was too strange. I have the heavenly punishment physique, so I must have merged with some of the power of the heavenly punishment. That's why I broke through. Tian naturally knew why the Bing family's patriarch was so shocked. If the heavenly punishment physique can merge with the power of the heavenly punishment, that would be great. The Bing family's patriarch exclaimed in surprise. He was naturally happy that Tian's strength had increased. This meant that he would be able to transfer all the power of the heavenly punishment in his body to Tian in the near future. Tian nodded and did not say anything else. At this moment, he had only merged with a small amount of the power of the heavenly punishment, and his strength had increased once again. More of the power of the heavenly punishment was stored in the sacred spirit blood seal. If he could completely merge with the power of the heavenly punishment in the blood seal, his strength would increase once again. But now his strength was already extremely terrifying. The biggest benefit that the power of the heavenly punishment had brought him was not the breakthrough of his strength, but the improvement of his martial physique. The power of the heavenly punishment had merged with the power of the stars, making his martial physique even stronger. At this moment, Tian felt like he was a monster. Even an ordinary rank 9 pseudo-sacred cultivator would not be as strong as his martial physique. No one would believe that a rank 4 pseudo-sacred cultivator's martial physique was stronger than a rank 9 pseudo-sacred cultivator. Young friend Tian, something big happened in the heavenly punishment domain recently. Do you know about it? The Bing family's patriarch suddenly looked at Tian and asked. Something big? Tian was stunned, and his face was filled with doubt. Chapter 32:11. Heaven and Earth Saint Meridian Tian frowned when he saw the mysterious expression on the Bing family's forefather's face. He was looking forward to it. With the status of the Bing family's patriarch, what could possibly make him so excited? The Bing family's forefather chuckled and said, "Rumor has it that the Tianqing territory floated here from a sacred realm in the archaic era. It is said that there is a Heaven and Earth Saint Meridian in the Tianqing mountain range." Heaven and Earth Saint Meridian? Tian asked, "What is that?" He knew about earth veins and guessed that the Heaven and Earth Saint Meridian was something similar. However, he didn't think that the Tianqing territory was a part of the sacred realm in the archaic era. The Tianqing territory was similar to the abandoned land, but the sacred realm in the Tianqing territory was too old and had completely degenerated into a territory. The Heaven and Earth Saint Meridian is an earth vein that stores a large amount of Heaven and Earth Saint energy. It is even more terrifying than a sacred seed. The Bing family's forefather suddenly lowered his voice and said, "It is said that the Heaven and Earth Saint Meridian also contains the power of the Heaven and Earth bloodline." The power of the Heaven and Earth bloodline? Tian was stunned again. He knew about the power of bloodlines, but he had never heard of it. Tian, my young friend, you know about the power of bloodlines, right? The Bing family's forefather saw Tian's confusion and explained, "The power of a cultivator's bloodline is usually inherited through the bloodline. However, some bloodlines do not exist in the cultivator's body, but in the world itself. This kind of bloodline is the power of the Heaven and Earth bloodline." Tian's eyes narrowed, and he nodded. The so-called power of the Heaven and Earth bloodline was actually the Khanate bloodline. For example, some formations were created by humans, while others were nurtured by the world itself. Tian had seen Khanate's sacred formations before, but the power of the Heaven and Earth bloodline was extremely rare. To think that there would actually be a Heaven and Earth Saint vein in this realm. This is simply unbelievable. At this moment, the Ghost Emperor's voice rang out as he exclaimed, "Is the Heaven and Earth Saint Meridian that powerful?" Tian frowned and asked, "It's more than amazing." The Ghost Emperor laughed. "The sacred veins of Heaven and Earth are nurtured by the Heaven and Earth. Who knows how many years have passed before they can form? Even in the holy world, a Heaven and Earth Saint vein is extremely terrifying, let alone a realm. Without any exaggeration, if a sacred vein of Heaven and Earth appears in a sacred world, the entire sacred world will be alarmed." Hearing the Ghost Emperor's words, Tian's eyes became hot and trembled. From the looks of it, this Heaven and Earth Saint vein did indeed contain extremely terrifying power. Ghost Emperor, can the power of the Heaven and Earth Saint veins unlock the Heaven and Earth Saint runes in the Saint Origin Blood Jade? Tian's eyes narrowed as he thought of something. The Saint Essence Blood Jade was the reward he had received from the Heaven's Chosen Venerable during the Heaven's Chosen Path. The Saint Essence Blood Jade contained 9 Heaven and Earth Saint runes. Each Heaven and Earth Saint rune contained the power of a saint. However, unsealing the Heaven and Earth Saint runes required a lot of power. Tian had already unsealed 3 Heaven and Earth Saint runes. There were still 6 Heaven and Earth Saint runes that he had yet to unseal. It would be great if he could use the power of the Heaven and Earth Saint vein to unseal the Heaven and Earth Saint runes. Of course, the Ghost Emperor laughed. Then he narrowed his eyes and said, "However, something like the Heaven and Earth Saint vein won't appear so easily. Unless someone can attract the Heaven and Earth Saint light, the heaven and earth saint Vane won't appear. This? Nyetian was stunned. He had no idea what the Ghost Emperor was talking about. Nyetian, everything in the world has spirituality and can sense many things. Some things that are nurtured by the world will only appear when the time is right. The Ghost Emperor smiled faintly and did not say anything else. Nyetian's face was blank. He did not understand what the Ghost Emperor was saying. However, he did understand one thing. For the heaven and earth saint Vane to appear, someone must attract the heaven and earth saint light. However, he did not know how to attract the heaven and earth saint light and what kind of person would be able to do so. Not long ago, the president sensed through the heaven amplifying array that the heaven and earth saint Vane seemed to be moving. At this time, the Bing clan's ancestor looked at Nyetian and continued. At this time, the president has secretly arranged for many geniuses from the 10,000 Domains Guild to enter the Tianxing mountain range to find the heaven and earth saint Vane. Nyetian's eyes narrowed. He looked at the Bing clan's ancestor and waited for the latter to continue. It is said that only those with extraordinary talent can find the heaven and earth saint Vane. Then, the Bing clan's ancestor looked at Nyetian with a heated gaze. Nyetian, my young friend, I feel that since you have the Tianxing body and can even withstand the power of the Tianxing force, it means that your talent is extraordinary. The Bing clan's ancestor's gaze became even more heated. Nyetian, my young friend, perhaps you are the one who can find the heaven and earth saint Vane. The corner of Nyetian's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but laugh. This Bing clan's ancestor was quite confident in him. Nyetian, my young friend, if you want to enter the Tianxing mountain range, I can help you. Seeing Nyetian smile, the Bing clan's ancestor became excited. If Nyetian is able to find the heaven and earth saint Vane, it will be great news for the Tianxing territory, or even the 10,000 domains. The corner of Nyetian's mouth twitched. A strange smile appeared on his face. After a while, he said, Senior, since I have nothing to do now, why don't I go to the Tianxing mountain range? All right. Seeing that Nyetian agreed, the patriarch of the Bing clan nodded heavily. He took out a medallion and handed it to Nyetian, saying, This is the inner sect medallion of the Bing clan. It allows you to enter the Tianxing mountain range freely. Many thanks, Senior. Nyetian took the command medallion and expressed his gratitude with a faint smile. Nyetian, my young friend, you should rest in the ice house for a few days. In a few days, I will ask Hongye to arrange for you to enter the Tianxing mountain range. The Bing clan's ancestor smiled and said, There's no need. Nyetian smiled and said, I'm going to the Tianxing mountain range now. You're going now? The Bing clan's ancestor was startled. He didn't understand why Nyetian was in such a rush to leave. He was also worried that Nyetian's martial body might not be able to handle it after enduring the Tianxing force. Senior, don't worry. I'm fine. Nyetian smiled. His eyes flickered with determination. The Bing clan's ancestor didn't say anything else after seeing Nyetian's determination. Nyetian didn't stay any longer. Without Hongye's protection, he left the ice house. After leaving the ice house, he didn't go straight to the Tianxing mountain range. Instead, he took a detour around the Tianxing city. When they entered Tianxing city, Jean de Bao said that someone was following them. Nyetian was worried that the people following them were still around. Then, Nyetian left the Tianxing city and headed to the Tianxing mountain range. The Tianxing mountain range was a few hundred miles away from the Tianxing city. It didn't take long for Nyetian to arrive. Chapter 32:12. Violent and Ruthless. When Nyetian sensed the killing aura approaching, his figure turned sluggish. His lips curled up into a bitter smile as he said, You guys are really annoying. I can't shake you off no matter how hard I try. Before he left Heaven Execution City, he had taken a detour, but he still failed to shake off these people. Just as he finished speaking, several black-clad figures appeared in the void at the same time. Nyetian, long time no see. Several black-clothed martial artists stared coldly at Nyetian. The leader of the group had a murderous look in his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile as he spoke coldly. Nietian looked at the cultivator who spoke and frowned involuntarily. He did not recognize the cultivator before him. Not only did he look unfamiliar, but his aura was also extremely unfamiliar. Xiaoqian did not remember when he had met this person before. "You don't remember me?" That cultivator smiled cold and said, "Then you definitely remember my other name, Felicitous Rain." Upon hearing this name, Nietian's eyes couldn't help but tremble as he exclaimed, "It's you." Of course, he remembered Felicitous Rain. He was the assassin who devoured souls during the Heaven Selection competition. At that time, Felicitous Rain had appeared as a dark horse and had nearly killed Yulua. At that time, Nietian had been very puzzled. Felicitous Rain had actually dared to kill the Rakshasa, holy daughter, in front of 3 Rakshasa kings. Later on, the Ghost Emperor could tell that Felicitous Rain was a cultivator who cultivated one soul with 2 bodies. The so-called one soul with 2 bodies referred to a cultivator's soul splitting into 2, occupying 2 martial bodies at the same time. Felicitous Rain was only a soul body. Hence, he had disregarded everything to kill Yulua. Nietian had fought with Felicitous Rain and killed him, but Felicitous Rain's soul had managed to escape. At that time, the Ghost Emperor had said that Nietian might have provoked a troublesome opponent. Sure enough, this troublesome matter appeared. It was impossible for Felicitous Rain to find Nietian alone. Hence, there had to be a huge faction behind him. To be able to quickly find a person in 10,000 realms, such a force was extremely rare. And the #1 assassin organization in the Myriad domain, Evernight, was such a force. "See you, if I'm not mistaken, you are a member of Night, am I right?" Niet Tianling chuckled coldly as he voiced his speculation. "Nietian, you are indeed very smart." The corner of Shigur's mouth twitched as he smiled coldly and said, "It's just a pity that smart people usually don't live long." "Really?" Nietian laughed. His face was filled with disdain. He glanced at Guayu and the others and said, "You want to kill me with just a few ants? You may not know this, but your great elder Dugu has already died by my hands." "What?" Shiryu's eyes trembled when he heard Nietian's words. He exclaimed in shock, "Elder Solitary is dead. Are you surprised?" Nietian smiled faintly and said, "Him running to the 9 regions to kill me is his biggest mistake." Shiryu's eyes trembled with murderous intent. He did not expect that Dugu-kan had already died at the hands of Nietian. Dugu-kan was one of the 4 great elders of night. "Nietian, you shouldn't have left the 9 regions." At this time, Shigur calmed down, and killing intent surged from all over his body. He growled, "Walking out of the 9 regions is your greatest mistake." He believed that the reason Nietian was able to kill Dugu-kan was because Dugu-kan was suppressed by the 9 regions' special space-time. But now, Nietian was in the Tianqing territory. Without any geographical advantage, he would definitely die. "Then make your move." Nietian did not waste time and said directly. Although Shigur was indeed a powerful opponent, Nietian did not take him seriously at all. Sure, you currently had the strength of an 8th-order pseudo-sage, and the martialists around him were 6th-order pseudo-sage. As for Nietian, he was a 4th-order pseudo-sage. With such a difference in strength, other 4th-order pseudo-sages would be in a hopeless situation. But for Nietian, there was no pressure at all. It was not an exaggeration to say that Nietian's current strength was enough to take on a weaker 9th-order pseudo-sage. "You're courting death." Shigur's eyes trembled as he let out a low roar. He could no longer control the killing intent in his body as he roared out, "Let me deal with this ant." At this moment, one of the black-clothed martial artists let out a fierce roar and directly moved. His whole body released a violent aura, and like a wild beast, he madly charged towards Nietian. Nietian felt the powerful aura coming at him, but the corner of his mouth twitched. Starlight Heaven Slash appeared in his hand, and he stabbed it out. Boom! The moment the sword's shadow swept through the air, the void trembled, and the world became solemn. In the next moment, blood appeared in the air, and that martialist died without a corpse. The horrifying scene caused the others' eyes to tremble. They were extremely shocked. How could they have ever imagined that Nyetian was actually so powerful? Shigur's eyebrows furrowed, and his expression grew grim. Then he laughed coldly and said, Nyetian, you're much stronger than you were during the Heaven's Choice competition. However, it's a pity that your opponent is me. You're dead meat today. Do it. Shiryu let out a roar, and his eyes were filled with a cold, murderous intent. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the three black-robed martial artists beside him moved at the same time. Like three arrows that had been shot from a bow, they shot towards Nyetian with murderous intent. Die! Nyetian's lips twitched, and he let out a low roar. A violent sword intent burst out from his body, and he soared into the sky like a sharp sword. At this moment, the sword will in his body was extremely violent, surging outside his body like a storm. Bang! 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 Nyetian's figure was like a bolt of lightning as he charged forward and forcefully broke through the aura of the three martialists. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the next instant, wherever Nyetian's figure passed, blood splattered everywhere. He had torn three martialists in black to pieces. Shiryu's expression changed drastically after seeing this, and his expression was filled with extreme shock. He could not believe what he had just seen. Nyetian was like a ferocious beast, ferocious and violent. Shiryu, leave your last words. Meanwhile, Nyetian's figure had already charged forward. The wings on his back vibrated, and his speed was extremely fast. He had already noticed that Shiryu was planning to use the same trick and activate the Yellow Springs Blood Rain. However, he would not give his opponent the chance to do so. Shiryu's soul was much stronger than when he fought for the Heaven's Choice Peak. Unfortunately, Nyetian's speed of growth was much faster than Shiryu's. Shiryu's eyes widened when he saw Nyetian charging at him like a wild beast, and he was extremely shocked. He wanted to say something, but he did not have the chance and could only utter one word. Whoosh! In the next instant, a tearing sound was heard in the air, and a bloody light appeared. Before Shigur could do anything, he died a horrible death. However, the way he died was extremely tragic. He had been torn to shreds by Nyetian. Nyetian's figure stabilized in midair, and he immediately sensed an aura. He could not help but squint his eyes and look into the sky. High up in the sky, a figure in purple stood there, staring at Nyetian. He was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 32:13. Being abandoned. Nyetian looked up at the woman in purple in the sky. He couldn't help but frown. His expression changed slightly. The woman in purple looked very young, but her strength was terrifying. She had actually reached the level of a first-level pseudo-sage. Nyetian also sensed a strange and familiar aura from her body. He had sensed such an aura before, but he couldn't remember where. The woman in purple was also looking at Nyetian. Her delicate face was blank, as if she had been scared silly. She had never thought that pseudo-sage martialists could fight like this. The scene in front of her was simply too bloody and unbelievable. At this moment, Nyetian had calmed down a lot. He frowned slightly and called out, "Miss you, But as soon as he opened his mouth, the girl in purple suddenly screamed. Her figure moved at an extremely fast speed. Like a stream of light, she flew towards the Tianxing mountain range and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Nyetian went blank for a moment before exclaiming inwardly. The girl in purple's speed was too fast. It had exceeded his expectations. Even if he used his astral soul wings to the limit, he still wouldn't be able to reach that speed. He could vaguely see the shadow of a pair of white wings appear on the girl's body and disappear in a flash. Where did I sense this aura before? Nyetian frowned. He thought for a long time, but still couldn't remember. In the end, he gave up. After a while, he calmed down and began to think about Dark Knight. He didn't know if he had really killed Shiryu, but he and Dark Knight were absolutely irreconcilable enemies. He had killed the great elder of Dark Knight. Duguk and Dark Knight had also accepted a mission from Jueying Temple. Therefore, no matter what, Dark Knight would not let Nyetian off. Compared to Jueying Temple, Dark Knight was a more troublesome problem. After all, Zhuiying Temple's pursuit of Nietian was limited. But Dark Knight was the largest assassin organization. Their assassins were spread across tens of thousands of domains. It would be too difficult for Nietian to hide his tracks. But now, Nietian didn't have a good solution. He could only take it one step at a time. For him, the most important thing now was to improve his strength. As long as he was strong enough, he wouldn't be afraid, even if the Master of the Night came personally. Then, Nietian did not stay any longer. He began to walk toward the Tianxing mountain range. Arriving outside the mountain range, he was stopped by two black-clothed martial artists. He flashed the Bing family's intersect token in his hand before he was allowed to enter. Since there were heaven and earth saint veins in the Tianxing mountain range, they couldn't just let anyone in. After Nietian entered the Tianxing mountain range, he discovered that there were quite a lot of people inside. Furthermore, most of them were young warriors below the age of 100,000 years old. Most of these warriors were in groups. Small groups had 5 or 6 people, while larger groups had more than 10 people. Nietian, if there really is a heaven and earth saint vein in the Tianxing mountain range, then it must be in the center of the entire mountain range. Don't waste time, just go straight to the center of the mountain range, the Ghost Emperor said in a deep voice. All right, Nietian agreed, and prepared to go straight into the depths of the Tianxing mountain range. Brother, please wait a moment. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Then, a warrior in green walked over with a smile on his face. He looked very enthusiastic and said, "You are alone, right? Do you want to team up with us?" Team up? Nietian was stunned. Then, he saw a few dozen warriors behind the warrior in green. There were both men and women, and they were all pretty strong. Brother, we are from the Yunyang branch. From your appearance, it seems that this is your first time coming to the Tianxing mountain range. Why don't you come with us? We can take care of each other. The warrior in green did not wait for Nietian to speak and laughed. That's fine. Nietian thought for a moment and nodded with a smile. This warrior in green looked like he was easy to get along with. He should be a good companion. That's great. When the warrior in green saw that Nietian had agreed, he could not help but laugh out loud. He said happily, "My name is Shanglai. How should I address you, brother?" Nietian. Nietian smiled faintly and nodded. Big brother, you're looking for people randomly again. Why don't you take a look at how many people we have in our team? At this moment, a somewhat sharp voice sounded. It was extremely unfriendly. Nietian took a look. The one who spoke was a girl in green. Her facial features were exquisite, and her figure was fiery. Under her green dress, a pair of alluring long legs could be faintly seen. However, at this moment, this girl looked at Nietian with an unfriendly gaze. There was a hint of disdain in her eyes. Little sister, don't talk nonsense. Brother Nietian is not an outsider. Anyway, we already have so many people in our team. It doesn't matter if we add him. Shanglai turned around and said to the girl. Then, he chuckled and said to Nietian, "Brother Nietian, this is my little sister, Shang Nana. Don't lower yourself to her level." Nietian smiled faintly and did not say anything else. It was obvious that Shang Nana felt that Nietian was too weak and would be a burden to them. However, Shanglai's team was indeed a little too big. Furthermore, the strength of the entire team was not too strong. Most of them were 3rd-grade pseudo-sages, 4th-grade pseudo-sages, and a few 6th-grade pseudo-sages. At this moment, the slightly stronger martialists were looking at Nietian with obvious disgust. "Brother Shang, you mentioned earlier that you are from the Yunyang branch. Is that right?" Nietian asked Shanglai, who did not seem to care. "Yes." Shanglai nodded and said with a smile, "I don't know what happened, but the president suddenly ordered all the branches to send young genius martialists to the Tianxing realm. If not for this, my little sister and I would not have had the chance to come here." When Nietian heard Shanglai's words, his eyes narrowed slightly as he understood what was going on. It seemed like the president of the Myriad Domain Guild had mobilized all the genius martialists of the Myriad Domain Guild to the Tianxing mountain range in order to find the heaven and earth sacred meridians. Actually, in Nietian's opinion, Shanglai and the others were not considered true geniuses. Although Shanglai was not old, he was still tens of thousands of years old. However, His strength was only at the 6th grade pseudo-sage. He was still far from the genius in Nye Tian's eyes. As for the others, it seemed like only a 7th grade pseudo-sage martialist could barely catch Nye Tian's eye. Nye Tian's standards were so high not because he was arrogant, but because he had seen too many true geniuses. In Nye Tian's opinion, the president of the Myriad Domain Guild letting so many martialists enter the Tianqing mountain range at the same time was not a good thing. Although these martialists were all members of the Myriad Domain Guild, they were martialists from different domains. It was inevitable that there would be friction between them. If these martialists were to fight amongst themselves, it would not be good. Brother Shang, did your Yunyang branch send so many martialists this time? Nye Tian asked casually with a faint smile. He realized that the other martialists did not seem to recognize the Shang siblings, which was why he asked this question. Chapter 32:14. White Knight, Evil Spirit, Brother Nye Tian. Our Yunyang branch is only a bronze-level branch. We can only send 2 warriors to the Tianqing territory at most. Shanglai looked at Nye Tian and pointed to the people behind him. I don't know these brothers. They are from other branches. Nye Tian smiled faintly and nodded. I see. Shanglai's words revealed a lot of information. Nye Tian didn't know that the Myriad Domain Guild branches were divided into different levels. Different levels of branches would send different numbers of warriors. The Yunyang branch that the Shang siblings were at was obviously not a high level and could only send 2 warriors. However, this Shanglai was a little interesting. Originally, there were only the 2 of them, but he managed to expand the team to dozens of people. However, Shanglai was obviously not wary of outsiders and wanted to pull in anyone. Nye Tian had long noticed that a few warriors were looking at Shang Nana with unusual gazes. It was almost as if there was a lustful glint in their eyes. But even so, the Shang siblings didn't notice. All right, Brother Nye Tian, which branch are you from? Shanglai suddenly asked. Non-extreme branch. Nye Tian was stunned for a moment and then said casually. Non-extreme branch? Shanglai frowned and said in surprise. Is there such a branch? Nye Tian's face stiffened and he smiled awkwardly. Big brother, our Myriad Domain Guild has at least 8,000 branches, if not 10,000. Can you even remember those miscellaneous small branches? At that moment, Shang Nana took a sideways glance at Nye Tian and said in a loud voice, Some people must be from some low-level branch. That's why they're all by themselves. They don't even have a companion. Humph! After saying that, Shang Nana raised her head and raised her snow-white chin like a proud swan. Her eyes swept over Nye Tian unintentionally, looking even more contemptuous. Looks like I'm being looked down upon. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. His expression didn't change much, but he laughed bitterly in his heart. Of course, he knew that Shang Nana was referring to him. However, he didn't care too much about it. After all, he was just traveling with Shanglai and the others. What others thought of him was their business. However, Shanglai's expression was not happy. He glared at Shang Nana and said fiercely, Little sister, don't talk so much. Shang Nana was even more unhappy and retorted, You have no background, your strength is trash, and you don't even allow people to talk about you. Little sister, that's enough. Shanglai's face darkened as he said coldly, Humph, if you don't want to say it, then I won't. Shang Nana saw that Shanglai was really going to get angry, so she angrily turned around and left. Brother Nye Tian, my little sister is just a little too straightforward. Don't lower yourself to her level. Shanglai ignored her and turned to smile apologetically at Nye Tian. The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. He noticed that Shang Nana had gone to the side of a man in white. She glanced at him from time to time and laughed with the man in white. Nye Tian had already noticed that man in white. He was the strongest in Shanglai's team, a pseudo-sage at the 6th level. Moreover, the way he looked at Shang Nana was the most abnormal. His triangular eyes were filled with lust, and he kept staring at Shang Nana's thighs. However, Shanglai was so crazy that he didn't even notice this. The way the man in white looked at Nye Tian was also abnormal. There was a murderous look in his eyes. Brother Shang, who is that man in white? He seems to be quite strong. Nye Tian asked in a low voice as he walked. "Oh, you mean Brother Hua?" Shanglai was stunned for a moment before he laughed and said, "His name is Hua Chengdong. He is the strongest among us. He is a pseudo-sage at the 7th level. Moreover, he is from the Gold Branch, the Black Firmament Branch. I heard that his father is the president of the Black Firmament Branch, and he is the young master of the Black Firmament Branch. Look at the people around him. They are all from the Black Firmament Branch." After saying that, Shanglai greeted Hua Qingdong. The latter nodded with a smile, but his eyes inadvertently glanced at Nie Tian with a sharp killing intent. Nie Tian frowned and was speechless. He had secretly asked about Hua Qingdong, but who knew that Shanglai would say it out loud? But it was nothing. He didn't care about Hua Qingdong anyway. "Brother Nie Tian, which territory is your branch in?" Shanglai looked at Nie Tian and asked. It seemed that he was very interested in Nie Tian's background. "Nine Extremes territory," Nie Tian said with a faint smile. "Nine Extremes territory?" Shanglai was stunned for a moment. He asked in surprise, "Is there such a territory in the myriad domains?" "It's just a small territory. It's normal that you haven't heard of it," Nie Tian explained with a faint smile. Shanglai shook his head and muttered, "I know most of the territories in the myriad domains. How could I not have heard of Nine Extremes territory? Maybe it really is a small territory." Nie Tian's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. "Wait a minute." At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Everyone froze and looked in the direction of the voice. Nie Tian turned around and saw that the person who suddenly spoke was a skinny young man. Perhaps because he was too thin, his eyes were sunken, but they seemed to be very bright. "Brother Luo Ho, what did you find?" Shanglai walked over and shouted at the skinny martial artist nervously. "White Knight, evil spirit." At the same time, the Ghost Emperor's voice suddenly sounded, and he exclaimed softly, "White Knight, evil spirit." Nie Tian was stunned. He didn't know what the Ghost Emperor was talking about. "Nie Tian, that stick of a boy has one of the 8 great ancient evil seals in his body, the 3rd evil seal, White Knight, evil spirit seal." The Ghost Emperor chuckled and said with blazing eyes, "I didn't expect that this small territory would have one of the 8 great ancient evil seals." When Nitan heard the Ghost Emperor's words, he couldn't help but focus his gaze on the skinny young man. He was no stranger to the 8 great ancient evil seals. Not long after he came to the territory, he once met a woman who had the soul-absorbing demon seal. She was also someone who had the 8 great ancient evil seals. The demon dragon Wang Minghui told Nie Tian that the 8 great ancient evil seals were 8 evil seals that appeared during the ancient war of gods and demons. Rumor had it that the power of the 8 great ancient evil seals was no weaker than the 10 great ancient seals. However, rumors were rumors after all, and not all of them were true. Now that Nie Tian had learned about the 9 great clans that had created the world, the so-called ancient war of gods and devils didn't seem strange to him at all. After experiencing legends, many things would be deliberately exaggerated, so it wasn't strange. "Ghost Emperor, is there anything unusual about the White Knight Evil Spirit seal?" Nie Tian became cold and asked with a faint smile. "Nie Tian, don't underestimate the White Knight Evil Spirit seal." The Ghost Emperor heard the faint disdain in Nie Tian's tone and said in a deep voice, "With the power of the White Knight Evil Spirit seal, it is enough to sense the location of the heaven and earth sacred veins." "That's amazing." When Nie Tian heard the Ghost Emperor's words, his eyes trembled and he almost shouted. He didn't expect that the White Knight Evil Spirit seal could sense the heaven and earth sacred veins. Chapter 32:15. A woman in purple. Nie Tian did not expect Luo Ho, who looked unattractive, to have such a powerful seal on him. Luo Ho's eyes were trembling slightly, as if he had discovered something. He looked very excited. Seeing Luo Ho's reaction, the others did not dare to disturb him. They could only watch from the side. After a long time, Luo Ho finally opened his mouth and pointed at a valley in the distance. "Here, Brother Luo Ho, what did you find?" Shanglai could not help but ask in astonishment. "Follow me." Luo Ho chuckled and dashed toward the valley in front of him. The others reacted and immediately followed. Nie Tian naturally followed as well. He He wanted to know what this guy with the White Knight Evil Spirit seal, the third evil seal, had discovered. Soon, the group arrived outside the valley. Nietian looked at the valley in front of him and could not help but frown. He used his divine sense to sense it, and indeed sensed a strange aura. However, this aura was very mysterious, as if it was playing hide and seek with him. When he tried to sense it carefully, the strange aura weakened. Luoho stopped outside the valley and did not enter immediately. He was very cautious about sensing something. Brother Nietian, the Tianxing mountain range is not an ordinary mountain range. There are dangers everywhere. Rumor has it that there are many primordial fierce beasts in the mountain range. Shanglai walked to Nietian and whispered, Brother Luoho is sensing this valley. He can only enter after confirming that there is no danger. Nietian nodded as he also sensed his surroundings. The crowd looked at Luoho and did not dare to be careless. They all waited patiently. A bunch of weaklings. Let me see what is in this valley. However, at this moment, a violent voice suddenly sounded. Then, a figure walked out and was about to enter the valley directly. It's this guy. Nietian's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw the person. Young Master Dong. The others also exclaimed, looking very nervous. The person who stood out was none other than the young master of the mysterious firmament branch, Hua Qingdong. Obviously, Hua Qingdong wanted to show off in front of the crowd and show them his strength. Big brother Hua, Nana will accompany you. At this moment, another voice rang out. Shang Nana actually walked out and stood beside Hua Qingdong. Seeing this, Nietian could not help but frown and shake his head. Although Hua Qingdong looked ordinary, his strength and status were undoubtedly the most outstanding among this group of people. It was not surprising that Shang Nana had been sticking to him. Little sister, stop fooling around. Come back quickly. Shanglai stepped forward and said nervously. This was the Tianxing mountain range, and it wasn't a place to play around. The slightest carelessness would cause one to be consigned to eternal damnation. Don't worry, big brother. With big brother Hua protecting me, I will be fine. Shang Nana smiled and then got closer to Hua Qingdong. Brother Shang, don't you believe in the strength of Hua Qingdong? Hua Qingdong also opened his mouth at this time. He raised his eyebrows with an arrogant attitude. Shanglai was stunned for a moment. He still felt uneasy. Then, under everyone's gaze, Hua Qingdong and Shang Nana walked toward the valley step by step. Hua Qingdong looked impulsive on the surface, but in fact, he was very cautious. He approached little by little and did not dare to rush forward. Soon, the two came to the entrance of the valley. Everyone was nervous and did not dare to be careless. No one knew what Luoho had sensed in the valley. Big brother Hua, will there be anything wrong? Shang Nana was a little nervous. Her little face was stiff, and she looked at Hua Qingdong with trembling eyes. She regretted being impulsive and following Hua Qingdong's lead. But at this time, even if she pinched her nose, she had to go on. It's okay. I will protect you. Hua Qingdong faintly sensed a trace of danger. Although he said that, he slightly stepped aside and let Shang Nana walk in front of him. Watch out. At this time, Luoho suddenly screamed, and his voice became sharp. Whoosh. Almost at the same time, there was a sound of breaking the air in the valley. Then, a red light appeared and attacked Hua Qingdong and Shang Nana. Shang Nana's first reaction was to scream and panic. Hua Qingdong reacted instantly. He directly grabbed Shang Nana and threw her towards the red light. At this moment of life and death, this guy not only did not protect Shang Nana, but also used her as a human shield and threw her over. Little sister. The sudden scene caused Shanglai's face to turn pale with fright. With a roar, he charged forward with a swift movement. But he was still a step too late. In midair, the red light opened its bloody mouth and pounced toward Shang Nana. At this moment, everyone saw clearly that the red light was a giant red snake that was more than 10 meters long. Help! The moment the giant red snake fell, Shang Nana felt a bone-piercing chill. She was so scared that she screamed in a miserable voice. Swoosh! At this moment of life and death, a sword shadow appeared in the air. Wherever it fell, there was a bloody light. The giant red snake was directly cut into two. After its body fell to the ground, it twitched a few times and was torn apart by the sword chi. It turned into a pool of flesh and blood. Shang Nana was shocked by the scene in front of her. Her body fell and was caught by Shang Lai. The bloody and horrifying scene made everyone's eyes tremble violently. They were dumbfounded and speechless on the spot. A few seconds later, everyone came to their senses and looked at the person who made the move. Nye Tian stood on the spot with a faint smile on his lips. Fortunately, he reacted in time. Otherwise, Shang Nana would have been a corpse. Brother Nye Tian, thank you for your help. At this moment, Shang Lai excitedly walked over with Shang Nana. He quickly said, "Little sister, thank Brother Nye Tian." Shang Nana looked at Nye Tian with an awkward expression. Her lips trembled, but she finally nodded and said, "Thank you for saving me." It was nothing. Nye Tian smiled faintly and did not say anything else. Instead, he focused his attention on the valley. The moment the giant red snake appeared, he suddenly felt a familiar aura, which made him very surprised. He had encountered that familiar aura not long ago. It was the purple-clothed woman who left in a panic after being stunned by him. Previously, Nye Tian felt that the aura of the purple-clothed woman was inexplicably familiar. Now that the purple-clothed woman appeared again, it made him even more surprised. Who was this purple-clothed woman? At this moment, Nye Tian suddenly saw the purple-clothed woman's figure flash. Like a purple light, she disappeared in an instant. She left again. Nye Tian frowned, his face slightly darkening as he thought to himself. The purple-clothed woman should have been in the valley, but she seemed to have discovered something and left again. Not far away, Luoho was also surprised when he discovered the purple-clothed woman. Is she from the 10,000 Domains Guild? Nye Tian looked in the direction the purple-clothed woman disappeared in and frowned. He was very puzzled. He had a feeling that the purple-clothed woman was not from the 10,000 Domains Guild, but from an unknown force. Chapter 32:16. Worse than a scumbag, Nye Tian frowned and gradually calmed down. He felt that he would meet the woman in purple again. "Hua Qingdong, you scumbag. Are you trying to get me killed?" At that moment, Shang Nana suddenly reacted and looked at Hua Qingdong, shouting angrily. Hua Qingdong was stunned at first, and then he reacted. He suddenly looked up at Shang Nana with a cold look in his eyes and said coldly, "Little girl, who are you calling a scum?" "You." Shang Nana sensed the murderous intent in Hua Qingdong's eyes. Her face turned pale, and she was speechless. She had thought that Hua Qingdong was strong and trustworthy. She did not expect him to be a scumbag who was worse than a beast. He had used her as a human shield at the critical moment of life and death, but now he was trying to kill her. Hua Qingdong's face darkened. He was very angry. He had been too nervous just now. Otherwise, he would not have been scared by a snake. He felt that the scene just now had embarrassed him, and it was all Shang Nana's fault. Shang Lai looked at Hua Qingdong with a stiff face, not daring to speak. Hua Qingdong's mysterious firmament branch was not an organization that the Yunyang branch could afford to offend, and Hua Qingdong's strength alone was not something he could resist. Even if Hua Qingdong had almost killed Shang Nana, he could only endure it. "You are a scumbag." But at this moment, a deep voice rang out, breaking the dead silence of the scene, word by word. Everyone was stunned at first. Then they looked at the person who had spoken. It was Nye Tian. "Brother Nye Tian." Shang Lai was stunned for a while before he reacted. He was so scared that his face turned pale and he could not speak. Hua Qingdong was the young master of a gold-level branch, so he could not be offended at all. Otherwise, Shang Lai would not have kept quiet. However, as soon as Nye Tian opened his mouth, the situation instantly became tense. The crowd was also taken aback. They stared at Nye Tian in a daze, as if they were wondering if they had misheard. "What did you say?" At this time, Hua Qingdong came to his senses. His eyes became extremely cold. He stared at Nye Tian coldly and opened his mouth with a trembling voice. His killing intent was so intense that it almost solidified and enveloped Nye Tian. He didn't expect Nye Tian to call him a scum in front of so many people. "I said, you're scum." Tian looked at Hua Chengdong and laughed. His eyes were full of contempt as he said, "In other words, you are worse than scum." The faint voice was full of great sarcasm, like a loud slap on Hua Chengdong's face. "You piece of trash, do you think you're invincible just because you killed a bug?" Hua Chengdong's pupils suddenly dilated. With a low roar, his whole body's aura surged crazily. He roared, "I will kill you." As he spoke, the other martialists of the mysterious firmament branch took a step forward and released their auras. They all want to make a move. Whoosh! However, at this moment, Tian's lips curled up into a cold smile. He took a step forward and a sword intent pierced through the air. It formed a sharp blade in the air and shot out. Bang! Puff! In the next moment, wherever the sharp blade of sword intent passed, Hua Chengdong's aura was directly shattered. A sound of flesh being torn apart could be heard in the air, and a dazzling red blood mark appeared on his face. A sword mark. Hua Chengdong retreated a few meters and almost lost his balance. After he steadied himself, his face stiffened. His eyes trembled, and he was extremely shocked. He didn't expect Tian's strength to be so terrifying. He was a rank 7 pseudo Sacred Realm expert, but he couldn't even withstand a single sword intent from Tian. How is that possible? The other martialists of the mysterious firmament branch were shocked by the scene in front of them. They all retreated in horror, not daring to step forward anymore. The others were even more stunned. Their eyes were wide open, and they couldn't believe the scene in front of them. It was hard to imagine that a rank 4 pseudo Sacred Realm expert could be so powerful. Shang Lai and Shang Nana were dumbfounded. The bright red sword scar on Hua Chengdong's face made them feel like they were dreaming. Shang Nana, in particular, was completely frozen. She looked at Tian as if she was looking at a monster. How could this silver-haired martialist, whom she had always despised and even despised, be so terrifying? After a dozen seconds, Hua Chengdong finally came to his senses and exclaimed, "You little brat, you." Just as he was about to say something, he was frightened by Tian's cold gaze and swallowed his words. Tian stood there calmly, but his eyes were surging with cold, killing intent. He raised his head slightly, looked at Hua Chengdong, and said, "You're still alive because you're a member of the Myriad Domains Guild. If you say another word, I'll kill you." His voice wasn't loud, but it was extremely chilling. It was as if the surrounding space was filled with a strong, killing intent that was suffocating. Hua Chengdong's eyes trembled and his throat moved several times, but he didn't make a sound in the end. Tian's eyes were too frightening. It made Hua Chengdong feel a chill seep into his bones. At this moment, he realized how terrifying this silver-haired martialist in front of him was. Tian's mouth twitched. He ignored Hua Chengdong and looked directly at Luo Ho, saying, "Brother Luo, follow me into the valley." "Yes, yes." Luo Ho was stunned for a long time before he reacted. He swallowed his saliva and nodded repeatedly. After seeing how powerful Tian was, how could he dare to refuse? Tian walked in front and entered the valley step by step, but nothing unusual happened. He looked around the valley and didn't find anything special. What was even more strange was that the strange aura he had sensed in the valley had also disappeared. "Sir, that aura disappeared." Standing behind Tian, Luo Ho hesitated and said, "There was a person in the valley just now. It seems that the aura in the valley disappeared with that figure." "Yes." Tian nodded and couldn't help frowning. Of course, he knew that the person Luo Ho was talking about was the woman in purple. The strange aura in the valley seemed to have disappeared right after the woman in purple disappeared. At this moment, he was even more curious about who the woman in purple was. "Sir." At this time, Luo Ho suddenly approached Tian and lowered his voice. It seemed that he had something to say. "My name is Tian. You can just call me by my name." Tian's eyes narrowed, and he said in a deep voice, "Yes." Luo Ho answered very respectfully. He lowered his voice even more and said, "Sir Tian, I think the woman in purple is very strange. Should we follow her?" "Follow?" Nie Tian was stunned for a moment and couldn't help feeling a little surprised. Of course, he wanted to find the woman in purple, but the problem was how to find her. The Tianxing Mountains covered an area of tens of thousands of miles. To find a person was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Chapter 32:17. Holy Bloodline Tentacle, an Evil Spirit Mark. Nie Tian's eyes widened in surprise when he heard Luo Ho's words. The purple-clothed woman had only appeared for a very short period of time. It could be said that she had disappeared in a flash. If he hadn't seen the lady in purple before, he wouldn't have noticed her at all. However, it was Luo Ho's first time seeing the lady in purple. Not only did he notice her presence, but he also left an evil spirit mark on her in an extremely short period of time. Luo Ho's sense of perception was extremely powerful. The Day-Night Evil Spirit Mark is indeed one of the 8 great ancient evil marks. It is indeed powerful. Nie Tian frowned and exclaimed in his heart. Then, he looked at Luo Ho and asked, "Brother Luo, what is your evil spirit mark? Can it track a martial artist?" "It's just a mark. I can sense the person I've planted the evil spirit mark on." Luo Ho smiled and didn't want to talk about it. Nie Tian nodded with a smile and didn't ask any more questions. After all, the evil spirit mark was Luo Ho's secret. There was no need to tell him. "Lord Nie Tian, should we follow that lady?" Luo Ho looked at Nie Tian with a burning gaze. He hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "I think that the lady in purple has something to do with the heaven and earth holy bloodline." Why do you think so?" Nie Tian was stunned for a moment. Then his eyes narrowed slightly. "Intuition. It's just intuition." Luo Ho chuckled, obviously avoiding the question. "All right, we'll follow her." Nie Tian didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he smiled faintly and nodded. He had a lot of curiosity and questions about the mysterious purple-clothed woman. Since someone could follow the lady in purple, of course, they could follow her. Luo Ho gave Nie Tian a sly look and nodded. Then, Nie Tian thought for a moment and said to the crowd, "We're going deep into the Tianxing mountain range. It's very dangerous. Those who don't want to follow can leave now." The crowd was stunned and made a decision after a while. Most people chose to leave. Only the Shang siblings and a one-eyed cultivator were willing to follow Nie Tian and Luo Ho. Although Nie Tian had displayed great battle prowess just now, he was only a 4th-order pseudo-saint martialist after all. In the eyes of the crowd, he could not be considered a true powerhouse. Moreover, he was about to enter the Tianxing mountain range, which was an extremely dangerous place. According to the rumors, there were many ancient ferocious beasts living in the Tianxing mountain range. Many of these beasts were at the Sage realm. Although their battle strength had been greatly weakened in the Tianxing territory, their strength was still close to the peak of the false sacred realm. Many people felt that Nie Tian was courting death by entering the Tianxing mountain range. Naturally, they wouldn't follow him to his death. Soon, most of the people left. Of course, Hua, Chengdong, and the martial practitioners of the mysterious firmament branch wouldn't follow Nie Tian. Before leaving, Hua Chengdong glared at Nie Tian fiercely. His eyes were full of resentment. He was obviously unhappy to be humiliated by Nie Tian, but Nie Tian's strength was far above his, so he could only endure it. "Lord Nie Tian, Hua Chengdong is very sinister. If you let him go like this, he will definitely take revenge in the future." At that moment, Luo Ho came to Nie Tian's side and looked at the place where Hua Chengdong had disappeared. He couldn't understand why Nie Tian didn't just kill Hua Chengdong since he was so strong. "He's just a piece of trash. If he wants revenge, he can come at me." Nie Tian smiled faintly, his eyes cold. He didn't consider Hua Chengdong an opponent at all. The latter wasn't qualified to be his opponent. The reason why he didn't kill Hua Chengdong was that he didn't think it was necessary. In any case, Hua Chengdong was a member of the Myriad Domain Guild. "Let's go." Nie Tian smiled faintly and said. Luo Ho agreed and led the way. The most terrifying thing about his White Knight Evil Spirit Seal was its powerful perception. In a way, the perception of the White Knight Evil Spirit Seal was even stronger than the 3,000 Demon God Seals. Luo Ho left an evil spirit mark on the purple-clothed woman. As long as the ladder was within 10,000 miles, he could clearly perceive the ladder's location. Brother Nietian, how can you be so powerful? Your cultivation is clearly below mine. How can your combat power crush an expert like Hua Qingdong? Along the way, Shang Nana followed closely behind Nietian and spoke from time to time. Obviously, she wanted to get closer to Nietian, but Nietian always looked indifferent and didn't want to talk to Shang Nana. This wasn't to say that Shang Nana was a bad woman, but Nietian felt that this woman was too utilitarian and he didn't like her. In the next few days, Nietian and the others moved very slowly. Luo Ho could perceive the evil spirit mark, but it consumed a lot of mental power. Every once in a while, he had to stop and take a break. On the way, Nietian and the others encountered several fierce beast attacks, but Nietian easily dealt with them. After witnessing Nietian's strength, Shang Nana almost worshipped Nietian from the bottom of her heart. A few days later, Nietian and the others came to a valley. Master Nietian, the aura of the purple-clothed woman stopped here. She is in the valley. Luo Ho looked at the valley in front of him, his eyes slightly trembling, and said in a low voice, "Well, you wait here. I'll go in and have a look." Nietian nodded and then walked into the valley. At this time, he didn't perceive the aura of the purple-clothed woman, but he perceived another mysterious aura, exactly the same as the aura he sensed in the last valley. He was worried that the purple-clothed woman would escape again, so without hesitation, he directly flew toward the valley. Roar! But just as his figure was about to enter the valley, a low roar suddenly sounded, following which a black light appeared, as fast as lightning, attacking. Swoosh! Nietian's eyes focused, and without any hesitation, he directly slashed out with his sword. Wherever the sword's shadow passed, the air was dripping with fresh blood. It turned out that the black light was actually a black wolf over 10 meters long, which was slain by Nietian with one slash. Nietian's figure was very fast, stepping into the valley in the air, but the scene that greeted his eyes made his entire person stunned. In the valley, the thick fog in the air condensed into a series of tentacles, stretching out into the sky. Countless fog tentacles danced wildly in the air, like people who had fallen into a swamp, frantically crying for help. Within the fog, an extremely terrifying power was contained, and the aura was incomparably thick. And in midair, a purple-clothed figure stood, eyes closed. It was that mysterious, purple-clothed woman. Nietian was startled before he realized that the purple-clothed woman was continuously absorbing the fog tentacles. She's absorbing the power of the fog. Nietian squinted his eyes and exclaimed in his heart, "Sacred vein tentacles." At that instant, the ghost monarch's voice could be heard. Nietian was startled, and his eyes flickered. Chapter 32:18. Here comes the killing intent. The moment the purple-clothed woman saw Nietian, her eyes involuntarily trembled, and she cried out in alarm. Obviously, she hadn't expected that the person standing in front of her would be Nietian. "You?" Nietian's eyes darkened. Just as he was about to speak, the purple-shirt lady moved, and the mist in the valley disappeared instantly. Following this, the purple-shirt lady glanced at Nietian. Without saying a word, a pair of holy wings formed from white light appeared on her back, and she disappeared into the sky. Nietian was startled. He wanted to chase after her, but it was too late. The purple-shirt lady's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. What is she doing? Nietian stood rooted to the ground. It took him a while to react with a puzzled look. She's looking for the sacred veins. At that moment, the Ghost Emperor's voice was heard. Nietian's eyes narrowed as he recalled the Ghost Emperor's words. He asked, "Ghost Emperor, where are the sacred veins you mentioned?" The mist tentacles in the valley just now were the sacred bloodline tentacles. The Ghost Emperor's face darkened. The mist was the sacred veins, chi coming from underground. Normally, the energy of the sacred veins wouldn't leak out. But why are there sacred veins chi? Could it be that the sacred veins in the Tianxing mountain range have cracks? Cracks in the sacred veins? Tian was startled. He had no idea what the ghost emperor was talking about. The sacred veins are usually located tens of thousands of meters underground. They're very stable. The ghost emperor explained. Only when the sacred veins have cracks will the sacred veins qi emerge from underground and form sacred veins qi. Tian did not fully understand. He asked, could it be that the purple-shirt lady could sense the sacred veins qi and absorb its energy? He had seen the purple-shirt lady absorb the energy of the sacred veins qi. Furthermore, the mysterious aura he felt in the ancient past was the sacred veins qi. After the purple-shirt lady disappeared, the aura of the sacred veins qi disappeared too. Thus, Tian guessed that it was the purple-robed woman who had absorbed the saint bloodline qi. She's not absorbing the saint vein qi. The ghost emperor shook his head and said, I'm guessing that she's trying to use the saint vein qi to sense the location of the crack. Sense the saint vein's crack? Tian blanked for a moment before asking, what does she want to do? I don't know. The ghost monarch frowned and paused for a moment before saying, Tian, I have a feeling that this purple-robed woman isn't from the myriad domain. Are you saying that she's from the saint's world? Tian's eyes trembled as he asked in surprise. The ghost emperor hesitated for a moment before replying, it's very likely. Tian's pupils constricted slightly, and he was stunned on the spot. He never thought that the purple-robed woman would actually come from the sacred realm. Why would a holy world martial practitioner appear in a realm? What was her purpose in coming to this realm? Why did she want to sense the crack in the saint vein? Everything was like a huge mystery that lingered in Tian's mind. The ghost monarch's expression was similarly ugly. He had already confirmed that the purple-robed woman came from a sacred realm, and her identity was not simple at all. She was from the Holy Feather race. The Holy Feather race was an extremely large force in the sacred realm. The ghost monarch had seen the white wings that appeared on the purple-robed woman's back when she left. It was the symbol of the Holy Feather race. Holy Feather. At that moment, Tian suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but exclaim, I remember. He finally remembered where he had seen the purple-robed woman's aura before. The Heavenly Feather race, Aya. Among the 9 extremities, there was a little girl from the Heavenly Feather race, Aya. Tian had saved her when he accompanied Jing Yue and the others to the Sacred Moon Dynasty. The purple-robed woman's aura was similar to Aya's. No wonder Tian had felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity when he saw the purple-robed woman. The purple-robed woman's aura was very similar to Aya's, but there were still some slight differences between the two. It seemed that Aya's aura was not as pure as the purple-robed woman's. Could it be that Aya and the purple-robed woman are from the same race? Tian frowned as he thought to himself. Tian, have that stick continue to follow the purple-robed woman, the ghost monarch said solemnly. Tian nodded and walked out of the valley. Lord Tian, the purple-robed woman has left, Luo Ho hurriedly said when he saw Tian come out. Let's continue to follow her. Tian nodded and said solemnly. Then, they continued to follow the purple-robed woman. Several days later, Tian and the others arrived outside a dense forest. Brother Tian, this forest looks a little strange, Shang Lai said with a frown as he walked to Tian's side. This forest is a killing formation, right? It looks eerie. Shang Nana also walked over and couldn't help but comment. This forest is indeed shrouded by a killing formation. Tian smiled faintly. He wasn't flustered at all. Instead, his lips curled into a smile. A killing formation of this level was naturally not a problem for the ghost monarch. Tian was curious about what was in the forest and why there was a killing formation. That's strange. The purple-robed woman's aura has disappeared in this forest. Luoho approached Tian and said with a puzzled expression, his evil spirit imprint could exist for several months. However, the aura of the evil spirit imprint had stopped in the forest. Luoho tried his best to sense it, but he couldn't sense the purple-robed woman's aura at all. It seems like this forest is not simple. Tian looked at the forest in front of him and said solemnly, Nietan, give us Emperor some time. The ghost monarch's voice rang out. The killing formation in the forest was not complicated. However, it would still take some time to completely deconstruct the formation structure. Nietan replied. He wasn't in a hurry and waited on the spot. In the blink of an eye, a day passed. The ghost monarch had more or less deconstructed the killing formation structure. But at this moment, Luo Ho suddenly came to Nietan's side and said nervously, Lord Nietan, someone is coming. Nietan went blank for a moment before his expression flickered. Shanglai and his sister saw the change in Nietan's expression and instantly became nervous. They involuntarily moved closer to Nietan. Brat, I've finally found you. A moment later, a deep voice rang out. Then a white-robed figure flew through the air and arrived in front of Nietan and the others. A pair of cold eyes stared at Nietan with murderous intent. It was as if he wanted to devour Nietan. It's you. Nietan looked at the figure that suddenly appeared. His eyes narrowed and the corner of his mouth twitched. The person who appeared was none other than the young master of the mysterious firmament branch, Hua Qingdong, who had been humiliated by Nietan not long ago. That's me, Hua Qingdong sneered. The murderous intent in his eyes was extremely strong. Qingdong, is the person who hurt you this silver hair? Then, a vigorous and violent voice rang out in the void. Then, a black-robed figure appeared and stood coldly in the void. His entire body emitted a cold aura and a heavy murderous intent. Chapter 32:19. Young Master Xian Su. Young Master Xian Su. Shanglai stared at the black-clothed martialist in shock, as though he had seen something terrifying. His eyes were filled with uncontrollable fear. He is young Master Xian Su. Shang Nana exclaimed in shock when she heard Shanglai's words. Nietan's eyes narrowed. It seemed like this young Master Xian Su had some sort of background. Furthermore, it was obvious that young Master Xian Su was standing up for Hua Qingdong. Cousin, this is the brat who humiliated me and left a sword scar on my face. Hua Qingdong said with a cold smile as he looked at Nietan. Cousin. Shanglai's face stiffened when he heard Hua Qingdong call young Master Xian Su cousin. His eyes widened. He had never imagined that young Master Xian Su, one of the 9 great young masters, was actually Hua Qingdong's cousin. One had to know that young Master Xian Su was a martialist from the Diamond Level Lingyu branch. The Myriad Domain Guild's branches had a clear hierarchy. From high to low, they were Diamond Level, Gold Level, Bronze Level, and Iron Level. Shanglai's Yinyang branch was a Bronze Level branch. Hua Qingdong's Mysterious Firmament branch was a Gold Level branch. Bronze Level and Gold Level branches could only be considered average branches. Diamond Level branches were extremely powerful. There were only 5 Diamond Level branches in the entire Myriad Domain Guild. Young Master Xian Su's Lingyu branch was a Diamond Level branch. Hence, young Master Xian Su's background was extremely powerful. As for himself, he was one of the 9 great young masters due to his exceptional strength and talent. The so-called 9 great young masters are the 9 strongest martialists under 100,000 years of age in the entire Myriad Domain Guild. Brother Shang, who is this person? Nietan asked Shanglai through voice transmission as he looked at young Master Xian Su. You don't know who he is? Shanglai exclaimed. He could not help but glance at Nietan. His expression seemed to say, Are you from Myriad Domain Guild? However, he still introduced young Master Xian Su to Nietan. The 9 young masters, interesting. Hearing Shanglai's words, Nietan's lips twitched. He smiled in his heart, showing no signs of fear. Kid, did you leave the sore mark on his face? At this moment, young Master Xian Su spoke coldly. His eyes exuded an extremely sharp, killing intent. So what if it's me? Nietan smiled calmly. Just at this moment, several dozen cultivators appeared behind young Master Xian Su and Hua Qingdong. All of them had surging auras and a strong, killing intent. Shanglai and the rest subconsciously retreated behind Nietan, their faces filled with shock and fear. Young Master Xuanxu had a notorious reputation in the Myriad Domain Guild. He was the most ruthless and bloodthirsty among the 9 great young masters. Who would have thought that the Myriad Domain Guild would send geniuses like the 9 great princes to search for heaven and earth holy veins? I'll give you a chance to live. Young Master Xian Su stared at Nietian with a cold glint flashing in his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Let me leave 2 sword marks on your face, then kneel down and kowtow to Hua Qingdong to admit your mistake. Then you can live." His deep voice was filled with a strong sense of threat. Oh! When Nietian heard young Master Xian Su's words, he chuckled and raised his brows. "And if I don't do that, die." Young Master Xian Su took a step forward, and his aura surged wildly. His entire person was like a wild beast. A terrifying power burst out in an instant, causing the surrounding space to tremble slightly. Rank 9 Pseudo-Sage. Shan Lai and the rest exclaimed in shock when they saw this scene. They had long known that the 9 great young masters were very strong, but they did not expect them to be this strong. Young Master Xian Su's strength had actually reached a shocking rank 9 Pseudo-Sage. "Is that all you have?" When Nietian felt young Master Xian Su's aura, there was no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was undisguised disdain. Young Master Xian Su was at least 50,000 years old. It was very normal for his strength to reach rank 9 Pseudo-Sage. The boundless ghost wilderness was not even 1,000 years old, but he was already a rank 9 Pseudo-Sage. Compared to the boundless ghost wilderness, young Master Xian Su had wasted his years. "Brat, you dare to look down on this young master?" Young Master Xian Su's eyes darkened, and his expression was extremely cold. His eyes were extremely vicious, as though he wanted nothing more than to skin Nietian alive. He was a rank 9 Pseudo-Sage expert, but he was actually being looked down upon by a rank 4 Pseudo-Sage cultivator. How could he not be furious? Oof. Nietian's eyes turned cold, and he laughed coldly. He took a step forward, and his sword aura surged wildly. "If you want to stand up for that scum, then show me your strength." Ever since he had tempered his body with saint energy, Nietian had made a breakthrough in his strength. He had not had a good fight yet. Young Master Xian Su was a rank 9 Pseudo-Sage, and he was one of the 9 great young masters. It was a good opportunity for him to test out Nietian's current strength. Courting death. When young Master Xian Su saw that Nietian had actually taken the initiative to challenge him, he immediately felt insulted. With a low roar, his aura surged once more. Bang! In the next instant, the 2 auras clashed in midair, causing the void to tremble and the space to tremble. Nietian's figure swayed slightly, and after taking a few steps back, he found his footing firmly. On the other hand, young Master Xian Su was as steady as a mountain, not moving at all. After all, he was a rank 9 Pseudo-Sage, while Nietian was only a rank 4 Pseudo-Sage. In a head-on clash of auras, Nietian was still slightly weaker. After forcing Nietian back with his aura, young Master Xian Su did not reveal joy on his face. Instead, he revealed shock and anger. He was a rank 9 Pseudo-Sage cultivator, and yet he was only able to force back a rank 4 Pseudo-Sage cultivator when clashing with his aura. How is that possible? If it was an ordinary rank 4 Pseudo-Sage cultivator, they would be severely injured even if they did not die from the impact of such an aura. However, Nietian only took a few steps back and was completely fine. This lad's aura is so strong. When everyone saw this, their eyes could not help but tremble as they exclaimed. With the strength of a rank 4 Pseudo-Sage, he was only at a slight disadvantage against a rank 9 Pseudo-Sage cultivator. Nietian's talent was so high that it made one's hair stand on end. "Is this all you've got?" After stabilizing himself, Nietian's lips twitched and he mocked in a cold manner. "Looks like you don't live up to your title as one of the 9 young masters. Brat, you've angered me." Young Master Xian Su looked at Nietian with an extremely cold gaze. A black sword appeared in his hand, emitting an extremely sinister aura. Ultimate Divine Sword Physique. Nietian looked at the black sword in young Master Xian Su's hand and could not help but narrow his eyes as his expression changed slightly. He had not expected young Master Xian Su to be a swordsman at the ultimate divine sword physique realm. Looks like I've underestimated you. In the next moment, Nie Tian's lips twitched and his eyes burned with a strong battle intent. A swordsman with the ultimate divine sword physique was worthy of Nie Tian fighting with all his might. Brother Xian Su, you're really hot-tempered. However, at that moment, a voice sounded in the air. Following that, a white-robed cultivator appeared high up in the sky like a phantom. Chapter 32:20. A Clash of Geniuses. Bu Qingshun. Hearing this name, everyone was stunned and exclaimed in unison. Young Master Qingshun. Shanglai looked at the white-robed man, and his eyes widened. At the same time, Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he looked at the white-robed man. He was quite surprised. However, what surprised him was not the white-robed man's strength, but the latter's appearance. This man had delicate features and smooth skin. His facial features were more exquisite than most women's. If he were to change into women's clothes, he would probably charm countless men. Furthermore, this man was not tall. He was only slightly taller than the average woman. At this moment, the white-robed man stood in midair. His white robes fluttered like snow, like a white lotus blooming in the sky. His name was Bu Qingshun. Like Xian Su, he was also one of the 9 princes. Furthermore, he was ranked 6th among the 9 princes, even higher than the 9th-ranked Xian Su. Bu Qingshun, I didn't expect you to come as well. Young Master Xian Su clearly did not expect Bu Qingshun to appear. After he reacted, he spoke with a gloomy expression. If you can come, why can't I, Bu Qingshun? Bu Qingshun smiled faintly and retorted. His figure floated in the air like a ghost, blocking between Nie Tian and young Master Xian Su. Bu Qingshun, you'd better not interfere in my affairs. Young Master Xian Su said coldly as he looked at Bu Qingshun. Xian Su, with your strength, don't you think it's a little too much to bully a rank 4 pseudo-sage martialist? Bu Qingshun chuckled and looked at young Master Xian Su in a provocative manner. Bu Qingshun, if you leave now, I will pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Xian Su's expression darkened as he threatened Bu Qingshun coldly. Otherwise? Bu Qingshun raised an eyebrow and said coldly, Otherwise, what do you want? Everyone's expression changed when they saw this, and their eyes burned with passion. Everyone could feel the tension between Xian Su and Bu Qingshun. Both of them were experts among the 9 princes. If they fought, it would be very exciting. Nie Tian, on the other hand, smiled faintly and stepped back. Since there were people who refused to accept the mystery, he was naturally willing to be a bystander. Bu Qingshun, you've gone too far. At this moment, Xian Su roared out as his entire body's sword force burst forth. It was like a raging tsunami that rumbled through the void. Since that's the case, let's make our move. Bu Qingshun faintly smiled at the enraged Xian Su, and a slender sword appeared behind him, floating in midair. It did not look like a sword, but more like a magnified needle. Heavenly will light dust. Xian Su looked at the slender sword on Bu Qingshun's back, and his face sank. His eyes trembled slightly. He had not expected Bu Qingshun to have already cultivated the ultimate divine sword body. Bu Qingshun's original spirit sword, Heavens Will Light Dust, was much sharper than before. The light dust of Heavens Will floated in midair, its sharp aura permeating the surrounding thousands of meters. The terrifying pressure it exuded was suffocating. What a sharp sword! Nie Tian's heart trembled slightly. He was quite surprised. The most direct aura he could feel from the light dust of Heavens was sharpness, an aura that was extremely sharp. 2 of the 9 young masters had appeared, and they were both swordsmen. Furthermore, their sword Dao realm was so high that it made Nie Tian raise his eyebrows. Xian Su, let's fight. Let me see if your 1,000 Mountain Xian Kuan is still as vigorous as before, Bu Qingshun said coldly. He stood with his hand behind his back, looking like a supreme sword god, extremely sharp. Arrogant. Do you really think this young master is afraid of you? Xian Su roared like a ferocious beast, and the sword intent around him burst forth. Waves of violent sword intent rushed into the void, and the surrounding space turned dark, dim, and oppressive. Boom! In the next moment, the thousand mountains Xian Kuan in Xian Su's hand made his move. Instantly, illusions of mountains appeared in the air, shrouding over like dark clouds. The sky turned dark, and the sun and moon lost their color. Using the sword intent to condense the mountains, the vigorous aura completely burst forth in an instant. Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect Xian Su's sword intent to be so vigorous, comparable to a peak bladesman. Is that all? Bu Qingchen felt the incoming pressure, but he laughed coldly. The heavenly light dust trembled in the air, and rays of sharp sword shadows shot out. Instantly, there was an ear-piercing sound in the void, as though the space was about to be torn apart. Tian's eyes narrowed again, surprised by the sharpness of Bu Qingchen's sword intent. Xian Su and Bu Qingchen, one had a vigorous sword intent, while the other had a sharp sword intent. Moreover, both of them had the strength of a nine-step pseudo-sage and had the ultimate god sword body. It seemed like they were evenly matched. Chi, chi, chi. In the next instant, the two terrifying forces collided. The sharp sword shadows actually tore apart all the illusions of the mountains in an instant. Swoosh! Immediately after, a sharp sword light that was incomparably dazzling, emitting a terrifying killing intent, rushed towards Xian Su. Xian Su's eyes narrowed, and his expression changed. The thousand mountains Xian Kuan soared into the sky, and a surge of sword intent swept out, blocking the deadly sword light. However, his figure was forced to take a few steps back, and he seemed to be in a sorry state. What a terrifying pair. No wonder they are the 9 princes. The crowd looked at the scene in the sky, and their eyes trembled slightly as they exclaimed. The strength of Xian Su and Bu Qingchen had exceeded everyone's expectations. However, in comparison, Bu Qingchen's strength seemed to be much stronger than Xian Su's. After all, in the first exchange, Bu Qingchen had gained the upper hand. Eyebrows furrowed, yet Tian thought to himself, their sword intents are evenly matched. It's just that Bu Qingchen's mastery of sword intent has already reached the pinnacle. Xian Su's is far from being a match for him. He was astonished that Bu Qingchen's control over the sword was so terrifying. It was so precise. Xian Su, after not seeing you for so many years, not only did your strength not increase, but it has also weakened. Bu Qingchen stood in the sky with his hands behind his back and mocked, how disappointing. Damn it. Xian Su was infuriated, and he roared like a wild beast. His eyes were bloodshot, and the sword intent around his body rose. His entire person was like a mountain standing in the sky. What a powerful aura. The crowd looked at Xian Su, and they couldn't help but exclaim. The aura that Xian Su was displaying right now was too strong, and it was shocking. However, yet Tian's lips twitched, and he shook his head. It's about time to decide the winner. In a battle between geniuses, victory or defeat could be decided in an instant. Bu Qingchen was as calm as water, and he had infuriated Xian Su while talking. This determined that Xian Su would lose for sure. If Xian Su could stabilize his state of mind and slowly drag out the battle, he might have a chance of winning. But now that he was angry, he would lose for sure. Xian Kuan's sword art, 1,000 mountains. At this moment, Xian Su roared, and his silhouette moved. The 1,000 mountains in his hand slashed out. Chapter 32:21. Everyone must die. Rumble. High up in the sky, the violent silhouettes of the mountains pressed down on Bu Qingchen and Lin like tidal waves. The entire space shook and the sky darkened. Everyone's eyes widened, and they couldn't help but retreat. Xian Su's sword was truly terrifying and made everyone's hearts tremble. Facing the pressure of the mountains, Bu Qingchen's eyes trembled a little, but only a little. Sword technique of destiny, rainstorm. In the next moment, his lips twitched. The light whisk of destiny that was floating behind him trembled a little and stabbed forward. Instantly, countless silhouettes of swords appeared. Like a real rainstorm, the sound of space being torn apart filled the air. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The rainstorm was as sharp as needles, and the sound of space being torn apart could be heard. The sword was so sharp that it could kill. Xian Su lost. Nie Tian watched the scene in the sky, and his lips twitched a little as he sighed. Bang, bang, bang. Just as his voice trailed off, a terrifying rumble resonated in the sky. The mountains were torn apart, and the swords were dispersed in the air. Bang! Then, a muffled sound was heard, and Xian Su's silhouette was flung backwards, drawing a line of blood across the sky. What they saw made everyone exclaim in shock. Their faces were filled with shock. Xian Su's silhouette was flung back for hundreds of meters before he finally stabilized himself. However, his entire body was covered in blood, and his flesh was a mess. It was as if he had been pierced by countless needles. Buqing Shun, his eyes trembled, and his expression was one of extreme shock. He wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. All his meridians had been destroyed by Bu Qingshun. Nie Tian's eyes froze, and he immediately reacted. The corner of his lips twitched uncontrollably. He didn't think that Bu Qingshun's methods would be so ruthless and vicious. He directly destroyed Xian Su's cultivation. Xian Su, you should be glad that I didn't kill you. At this moment, Bu Qingshun spoke. He smiled coldly and said, destroying your Yuan meridians is already my greatest mercy. Xian Su is destroyed. Everyone finally reacted after hearing Bu Qingshun's words. Their faces changed color, and they were extremely shocked. Just now, everyone thought that the battle between Bu Qingshun and Xian Su was just an exchange of pointers. However, Bu Qingshun's ruthlessness exceeded everyone's expectations. Bu Qingshun, you bastard, you pfft. Xian Su's eyes suddenly widened, and he roared like a wild beast. However, he only roared halfway before his body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. After that, his body fell straight down like a kite with its string cut. Cousin, seeing this, Hua Qingdong finally reacted and shouted. Then, his figure flashed, and he flew towards the Xian Su, courting death. However, at this moment, Bu Qingshun, who was high up in the sky, sneered coldly. The heavenly will light dust streaked across the sky, and a sharp sword intent shot out towards Hua Qingdong. Hua Qingdong, who was in the air, suddenly felt a piercing chill. His eyes could not help but tremble. Pooh! In the next moment, before he could even react in the slightest, the sword inside had directly pierced through his neck, causing blood to gush out violently, and it was a bloody scene. Bang! Bang! Following this, Xian Su and Hua Qingdong's bodies smashed onto the ground like two giant rocks and turned into two piles of flesh. The horrifying scene caused everyone's eyes to tremble, and they gasped. The fear in their hearts was written all over their faces. Bu Qingshun was so ruthless to actually kill Xian Su and Hua Qingdong. Previously, when Bu Qingshun crippled Xian Su, everyone thought that he would not kill the latter. However, from the looks of it now, crippling Xian Su before killing him was just to make the latter suffer more before his death. Xian Su's meridians were crippled, and he felt despair, but in his heart, he must still be thinking of revenge. Unfortunately, when he fell from the sky, he was destined to die. One could imagine how hopeless he was during the fall. As for Hua Qingdong, he wanted to save Xian Su, so he was killed by Bu Qingshun. Bu Qingshun even dared to kill Xian Su, so why would he care about a small fry like Hua Qingdong? This man is so vicious. Nie Tian looked at Bu Qingshun, and the corner of his lips twitched as he thought to himself. At this moment, everyone looked at Bu Qingshun with unconcealable fear in their eyes. Are you with young Master Xian Su? Then, Bu Qingshun's eyes darkened, and he glanced at the people of the spirit jade and mysterious firmament mountain branches as he spoke coldly. We, the group of cultivators, felt the bone-chilling killing intent, and their faces changed. Their lips trembled, but they could not make a sound. It was obvious that Bu Qingshun wanted to kill them. Since you're not saying anything, it means that you agree. Bu Qingshun sneered, and then he took a step forward. Instantly, Countless sword shadows whizzed out, blotting out the sky and covering the earth, and slashed towards the people below. Run! At this moment, the crowd finally reacted, and they screamed in fear as they started to run for their lives. However, at this moment, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. How could they escape from the sword shadows that filled the sky? Sky slash. At this moment of life and death, a deep voice suddenly sounded. Then, a majestic sword shadow appeared, forcibly breaking through the sword shadows that filled the sky, and saved the crowd. Yeah. The sudden scene caused Buchinchin's face to darken. He turned around abruptly, and his cold eyes stared at a silver-haired figure. It was Nie Tian. Brother Nie Tian. Lord Nie Tian. Shanglai and Luo Ho were stunned when they saw Nie Tian's sudden attack, and they shouted in fear. They did not expect Nie Tian to attack at this moment. The people that Buchinchin killed were from the Spirit Jade and mysterious firmament mountain branches. What did it have to do with Nie Tian? Moreover, Buchinchin had just killed Xian Su, and it could be said that he had helped Nie Tian. Brat, I killed Xian Su. Not only did you not thank me, but you also want to attack me. That's not appropriate, right? Buchinchin looked at Nie Tian and sneered. Even if I don't attack now, you will still kill me later, won't you? Nie Tian's lips twitched, and he replied with a faint smile. Buchinchin had killed the people from the Spirit Jade and mysterious firmament mountain branches to silence them. Xian Su's status was very high. Of course, he could not be killed on a whim. The moment Buchinchin killed Xian Su, he had already made up his mind to silence them. However, he did not expect Nie Tian to attack first. Brat, you're not too stupid. Buchinchin smiled sinisterly and said, Today, all of you will die, because you saw something you should not have seen. This, Shanglai, Luo Ho, and the others were stunned. Buchinchin actually wanted to kill them. You want to kill us? I'm afraid you don't have the strength to do so. Nie Tian smiled faintly, and a cold smile appeared on his face. His sword aura erupted from his body. In the primal chaos origin coffin, the Azure Dragon Star Soul in the original Star Soul canon started to flicker, and the astral runes became active. Although the Azure Dragon Star Soul had been merged with the boundless desolate Ghost Star Soul, it had left behind a Star Soul diagram in the original Star Soul canon. Not long ago, Nie Tian successfully used the Azure Dragon Star Soul diagram to carve out the Azure Dragon Star Soul. Chapter 32-22. Scheming. A mere fourth-ranked pseudo-sacred ant dares to fight against me? What a joke. Buchinchin looked at Nie Tian with disdain. Sword intent surged from his body, and a sharp aura was released, as though it was going to tear the void apart. Ignoring Buchinchin's provocation, Nie Tian narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Everyone, back off. His next battle with Buchinchin would be extremely intense. It would be better for the others to retreat. Shanglai and the rest looked at Nie Tian and retreated. At this moment, Shanglai and the rest were filled with worry. They knew that Nie Tian was strong, but Nie Tian's opponent was undoubtedly stronger. Even one of the 9 princes, Xian Su, was easily killed by Buchinchin. Would Nie Tian be Buchinchin's opponent? At the same time, the others retreated as well. They were waiting for an opportunity to escape. Of course, they didn't believe that Nie Tian would be Buchinchin's opponent. You can't even protect yourself. Why would you care about others? Buchinchin laughed coldly. The heavenly will light, dust in his hand, trembled slightly. Instantly, a sharp sword intent transformed into hundreds of terrifying sword shadows, enveloping Nie Tian. Roar! Nie Tian's lips twitched as he summoned his Azure Dragon Astral Soul. Numerous astral inscriptions surged in the air, instantly forming an azure dragon that was thousands of meters long. It roared angrily, shaking the heavens and earth. Chi, chi, chi. In the next moment, the sword shadows whistled and tore the azure dragon apart, following which a cold sword light transformed into a ray of light and shot towards Nie Tian. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian felt a suffocating pressure. His expression changed slightly and a pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back as he retreated frantically. However, he was still one step too late. Pooh! The sword light flashed, and the air was dyed red. On Tian's shoulder, a wound so deep that his bones could be seen appeared. His flesh and blood curled up, dyeing half of his body red in an instant. He retreated a few hundred meters before he managed to stabilize himself. Upon seeing this, Shang Lai's eyes flickered as he exclaimed, "Brother Tian." This scene was within his expectations, but when it really happened, he was still extremely shocked. No matter how talented Tian was, there was no way he could fight against Bu Qingchen, who was a stage 9 pseudo-sage. It was just that Tian's injuries were too tragic. This guy can't hold on any longer. The others looked at Tian in shock and couldn't help but retreat. Tian steadied himself. His countenance was somewhat unsightly. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he thought to himself, "The Azure Dragon Astral Soul is still not enough." The Azure Dragon Astral Soul he used earlier was based on the Azure Dragon Astral Soul diagram recorded in the original Codex of Astral Souls, slowly inscribing it using astral runes. The astral souls inscribed using this method were like a painting apprentice, drawing out each stroke at a time. Naturally, the power of the astral souls would be very weak. Tian had already mentally prepared himself that the power of the Azure Dragon Astral Soul wouldn't be too strong. After all, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul was no longer recorded in the original Codex of Astral Souls. However, he didn't expect that the Azure Dragon Astral Soul would be so weak. It was simply an empty shell. It couldn't even block a single attack from Bu Qingchen. In fact, Bu Qingchen's strength was slightly weaker than the opponent Tian had faced before, faced Sirius from the Fei Tian Azura race. Back then, when Tian faced Sirius, he had used the Azure Dragon Astral Soul to instantly kill the latter. But now, his Azure Dragon Astral Soul wasn't even worth mentioning. It seems like my ability to inscribe astral souls is too weak. Tian smiled bitterly as he frowned and looked at Bu Qingchen in the distance. One had to admit that Bu Qingchen's sword intent was extremely strong and sharp to the extreme. Tian had once encountered swordsmen with a higher realm in the Sword Dao. However, the sword intent of those swordsmen was not as sharp as Bu Qingchen's. Furthermore, Bu Qingchen's usage of sword intent was terrifying. His sword intent was condensed into a blade that was incomparably sharp. If it wasn't for this, Bu Qingchen wouldn't have been able to kill Xian Su so easily. Bu Qingchen's eyes narrowed when he injured Tian. There wasn't any joy on his face. Instead, he was extremely shocked. He saw that the wound on Tian's shoulder had actually healed in the blink of an eye. His sword intent was as sharp as a blade and extremely violent. If it was an ordinary 4th-ranked pseudo-sage cultivator, they would have been torn apart by his sword intent. However, Tian's martial physique was extremely strong. He was actually able to force out Bu Qingchen's sword intent. Tian's lips curled into a smile as his wound healed. Fortunately, his martial physique was extremely strong. Otherwise, that sword would have taken his life. "Brat, you're not bad. You want a chance for yourself to live." Meanwhile, Bu Qingchen's eyes narrowed slightly as his lips curled into a sinister grin. He said, "If you help me kill everyone here, I'll let you live." The crowd's eyes narrowed and their faces darkened after hearing Bu Qingchen's words. Although in their eyes, Tian's strength was far weaker than Bu Qingchen's, Tian was their only hope. If this hope turned into a murderous sword, they would have no chance of surviving. "Bu Qingchen, you're really good at scheming." Tian laughed and said, "But do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? If I really help you kill these people, I'm afraid you'll kill me without hesitation." "Huh?" Bu Qingchen's face darkened and turned cold. He obviously didn't expect Tiansheng to be so cunning that he could see through his thoughts with a single glance. It was true that he had no intention of letting Tian go. He only wanted to use Tian to kill these people. "Brat, you're smart." Bu Qingchen smiled coldly and said, "I wanted to save some trouble, but it seems like I'll have to do it myself." Whoosh! As the sound of his voice faded, Bu Buqingqin's sword pierced through the air. A sharp sword intent whistled through the air, bringing with it an extremely cold and murderous aura as it headed towards Nietian. Nietian's eyes narrowed, and his expression changed. Buqingqin's sword intent was extremely sharp. In an instant, he felt a suffocating pressure. However, in the next moment, his lips twitched and an astral shield appeared around him. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and rushed towards Buqingqin. Huh? Buqingqin's expression changed. Nietian's fierceness had exceeded his expectations. Human sword slashes the stars. At that moment, Nietian roared in a low voice. A terrifying sword shadow appeared in the air. Like a mad dragon, it pressed down, causing the entire space to tremble. It was as if the heavens and earth were about to be split apart. "You're courting death." Buqingqin laughed coldly. His heavenly will light dust swept out, and a ray of sword light appeared, aiming for Nietian's throat. Nietian dodged to the side, avoiding the attack. However, a terrifying wound appeared on his shoulder, and blood gushed out. Bang! At the same time, Buqingqin retreated under the attack of the powerful sword shadow. He only managed to stabilize himself after retreating for more than 1,000 meters. He looked extremely pathetic. He didn't expect that Nietian's attack would be so terrifying. At that moment, the people from a spirit jade and mysterious firmament branches seized the opportunity and started to flee. Chapter 32-23. A head-on battle. Buqingqin's eyes were cold and murderous. He would not allow anyone to escape. Otherwise, the fact that he had killed Xian Su would be exposed. Sword technique of heavenly will, blade of hurricane. His eyes turned cold, and with a roar, the sword will in his body condensed in an instant. It turned into countless wind blades in the air, and with the momentum of a whirlwind, it enveloped the crowd. Everyone felt the incoming murderous intent, and their expressions changed. Many of them stood rooted to the ground, waiting for their deaths. Sun reversal sword. At this moment, a furious roar resounded, and Nietian's sword intent surged out like raging waves. The starlight heavenly slashed down violently, and a gigantic sword shadow that was over 10,000 meters long appeared in the sky. It was like a wild beast, and it smashed down towards Buqingqin. Buzz! At this moment, the sky trembled and a low rumbling sound was heard. The sky shook and the clouds changed color. Buqingqin suddenly felt an enormous pressure on his head. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Then, he abruptly turned around and saw the gigantic shadow of the sword. His face changed color, and his eyes revealed a look of shock. He didn't think that Nietian's strength would be this strong. One slash was enough to unleash such a terrifying force. If he insisted on killing the others, he would definitely be severely injured by Nietian. Sword technique of heavenly will mountain. At this moment of life and death, Buqingqin's eyes trembled. He stabbed out with the light whisk of heavenly will. Boundless sword intent condensed into the shape of a mountain in the sky. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, the sword shadow fell down and the sky shook. The enormous mountain shadow could not withstand the impact of the sword shadow and exploded instantly. It turned into countless waves of sword intent and attacked the sky. Bang! Then, a muffled sound was heard, and Buqingqin's body was flung thousands of meters away. After he stabilized himself, blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. His expression was extremely ugly. He had never expected that Nietian's sword strike would be so terrifyingly powerful. Shanglai and the others were stunned by the scene in front of them, and then they were petrified on the spot. Nietian's sword had made Buqingqin vomit blood. How is this possible? Nietian was only a 4th-rank pseudo-martial sage, but his battle prowess wasn't any weaker than the 9 titles. If he hadn't witnessed such a shocking scene with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it at all. Run. At this time, the other people were stunned for a moment before they immediately reacted and ran in all directions while screaming. Buqingqin's face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to drip blood. His eyes were filled with a cold, killing intent. At this moment, He really wanted to attack and kill everyone who was running away. But when his gaze swept over Nyetian, he revealed an unconcealable fear. Nyetian's attack just now made him realize that the former was a very terrifying opponent. If it was an ordinary rank 4, pseudo, Saint martial artist, they would be like ants in his eyes. However, Nyetian's battle prowess clearly far surpassed martial artists of the same level. Buqin Shun, let's stop here. At this moment, Nyetian's eyes darkened slightly as he said indifferently. Although he had injured Buqin Shun with his sword, the latter was only lightly injured, and it wouldn't affect his battle prowess at all. Moreover, Buqin Shun was very powerful. If they continued to fight, it would definitely be a life-and-death battle. Nyetian wasn't afraid of Buqin Shun, but he didn't want to waste time on this person. Although Buqin Shun had killed Xian Su and Hua Qingdong and was ruthless and sinister, it had nothing to do with Nyetian. Moreover, the people from the Lingyu branch and the mysterious firmament branch had already escaped, so there would naturally be someone else to deal with Buqin Shun in the future. Stop! Buqin Shun glared at Nyetian with his eyes almost spitting fire. A trembling voice came from his throat as he said coldly, "Brat, if I don't kill you today, my name isn't Buqin Shun." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Buqin Shun's aura surged crazily and waves of sharp sword essence surged in the void. The aura was so sharp that it seemed as if it could tear everything apart. Nyetian had injured him and let the others go. How could Buqin Shun let this go? Moreover, Buqin Shun didn't think that Nyetian was a match for him. The reason why he had been injured was that he had been caught off guard by Nyetian's sword strike just now. Now, he was in a fight with all his might. Buqin Shun, I don't want to kill you. However, if you insist on fighting, I won't be afraid of you. Nyetian's eyes turned slightly cold as he said in a deep voice, "You don't want to kill me?" Buqin Shun sneered as if he had heard a joke. He laughed coldly and said, "Even a piece of trash like you dares to be so insolent." As the sound of his voice faded, his body began to exude a terrifying killing intent. The light whisk of heavens will spun in the air, and a series of sword shadows appeared, crisscrossing each other. In the blink of an eye, a huge sword net was formed. "Little brat, prepare to die." Buqin Shun roared in a low voice as he stabbed forward with the divine will light dust. Instantly, a terrifying sword net was formed like a rain of arrows, sealing the surrounding space and spreading towards Nyetian. Buzz! In the blink of an eye, the huge sword net caused the void to groan. The space shook violently as if it was about to collapse. This guy is so terrifying. Shanglai and the rest could feel the terrifying pressure coming towards them. Instantly, their eyes trembled and their faces stiffened. Buqin Shun's strength was too strong. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly, following which the 9 dragon veins in his body started to revolve rapidly. Streams of dragon chi gushed out and a wild and explosive force was released. The space was filled with a majestic aura. Roar! In the next instant, a crimson dragon appeared and let out a furious roar, causing the void to tremble. Boundless dragon chi unleashed a terrifying force, causing ripples to form in the air. Rumble! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Following which, 2 terrifying forces collided with each other, causing the void to tremble violently. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Nyetian sensed that the space around him was filled with a terrifying power that threatened to tear his body apart. However, he was not afraid at all. Instead, a pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back as he dashed towards the sword net. Lord Nyetian, Luoho couldn't help but exclaim in shock when he saw Nyetian ignoring the force of the attack and dashing towards the sword net. From his point of view, Nyetian's actions were akin to courting death. Huh? Buqin Shun couldn't help but frown when he saw Nyetian dashing towards him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Nyetian hovered in midair as the violent force of the sword net slammed into his martial physique. Countless wounds appeared on his skin, and his entire body was drenched in blood. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Pung, pung, pung. At the same time, under the impact of the sword net, The body of the giant red dragon started to crumble bit by bit. At the same time that the dragon's body collapsed, a gap also appeared on the massive net of swords. Nyetian ignored the wounds on his body and flapped his wings. Like a ray of light, he dashed towards the sword net. How is this possible? Bu Qingshan's expression sank when he saw Nyetian breaking through the sword net. He had a bad premonition. Chapter 32:24. Killing blow. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 9-bone, eroding, soul-shackling chains whizzed out from the sky. They looked like skeletal snakes as they attacked Bu Qingshan. Bu Qingshan sensed the killing intent. His pupils shrank and his face turned pale with fright. However, he was, after all, a Stage 9 pseudo-sage expert with the transcendent sword physique. He reacted in an instant and retracted the surging sword intent in his body, forming a sword intent shield. Bang! The sword essence shield was shattered by the bone, eroding, soul-shackling chains. Although Bu Qingshan's sword essence was strong, he had condensed the sword essence shield in a hurry. Therefore, the sword essence shield was very weak. However, the sword essence shield weakened the impact of the bone, eroding, soul-shackling chains. Bang! There was a muffled sound in the void, and Bu Qingshan's body was sent flying. Blood splattered in the air. It was a bloody scene. So powerful. The shocking scene caused Shanglai, Luo Ho, and the others to exclaim as the astonishment in their hearts reached its peak. They had never expected Nyetian to be so powerful. Bu Qingshan's body was sent flying for thousands of meters. When he regained his balance, his face was extremely pale and his body was badly mutilated. Although the bone-eroding soul-shackling chains did not kill him, they had left 9 bloody holes on his body. Moreover, the bone-eroding soul-shackling chains had seeped into his martial body and devoured his blood. Looking at Nyetian, the wounds on his body were slowly healing. His eyes were extremely cold as he stared at Bu Qingshan like a wolf staring at a sheep. How is this possible? How can your martial body be so powerful? Bu Qingshan looked at Nyetian in shock. The strength of Nyetian's martial body had far exceeded his expectations. Even he would have been killed if he had been hit by that kind of violent force just now. However, Nyetian was able to use his martial body to resist the impact of the sword web. It was too terrifying. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Bu Qingshan would not have believed that there was such a powerful martial artist in the world. At this moment, Nyetian was only a rank 4 pseudo-sage. If he grew to a rank 9 pseudo-sage, wouldn't his martial body be even stronger than a sage's? Nyetian charged through the sword net in order to catch Bu Qingshan off guard. His combat power was not as strong as Bu Qingshan, but his martial body was stronger than Bu Qingshan. He had relied on the advantage of his martial body to trade blows with Bu Qingshan. He could endure the same blow, but Bu Qingshan couldn't. Bu Qingshan, I've already said that I don't want to kill you. At this time, Nyetian opened his mouth and said coldly, but you're unwilling to forgive me and want to kill me. Then don't blame me. What do you want to do? When Bu Qingshan sensed the killing intent in Nyetian's eyes, his pupils shrank and his voice trembled. What do you think? Nyetian laughed. The wounds on his body had already healed. He took a step forward and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Lord Nyetian wants to kill Bu Qingshan. Luo Ho, who was on the ground, couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Nyetian could indeed kill Bu Qingshan right now, but would it be wise for him to do so? Bu Qingshan was ranked 6th among the 9 princes and had a powerful family backing him. On the other hand, Nyetian was just a martial artist from an unknown branch. The difference in status was too great. If Nyetian killed Bu Qingshan and news of this got out, would he still be able to establish himself in the Myriad Domain Guild? Luo Ho was even worried that Nyetian would kill them after killing Bu Qingshan. He had already seen that Nyetian's methods were not inferior to Bu Qingshan's. Brother Nyetian, you can't kill him. At that moment, Shanglai also called out. Brat, you're Nyetian, right? You can't kill me. I am the young master of the Green Peak branch. If you kill me, the entire Myriad Domain Guild will not let you off. Bu Qingshun looked at Nie Tian and said calmly, "Oomph." The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and he smiled coldly. The coldness in his eyes deepened. Bu Qingshun, I gave you a chance to live, but you didn't cherish it. After saying that, his figure flickered and appeared only a few dozen meters away from Bu Qingshun. At this moment, Bu Qingshun hesitated. The killing intent enveloped him and made it difficult for him to breathe. Nie Tian, you can't. Bu Qingshun's face turned red and ugly. He couldn't even speak. I will kill you like a dog. Nie Tianling laughed. His eyes darkened and a sword intent shot out, aiming for Bu Qingshun's throat. Stop. However, right at that moment, a deep voice suddenly rang out. Immediately afterwards, an enormous hand appeared in the sky, rumbling as it smashed down towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian felt a sense of pressure. He turned around and stabbed his sword. The sword's shadow was like a dragon, resisting the huge hand in the sky. Feng Wanhong save. Bu Qingshun suddenly raised his head and saw a black-robed figure in the void. His eyes trembled, and he was extremely happy. However, before he could finish his sentence, his throat was pierced by the sword will. His eyes trembled a few times, and his life force directly disappeared. His body fell from the sky. The sixth-ranked young master of the 9 princes died, just like that. Boom! At the same time, 2 forces collided in the sky, and the impact spread in all directions. Nie Tian retreated dozens of meters. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth, and his face was pale. After he steadied himself, he raised his head and saw a man in black appear in the sky. The man's cold eyes were fixed on him, and he was suppressing his anger. The man in black looked very young. He should be younger than Bu Qingshun. However, his aura was terrifying. It was stronger than Xian Su's and sharper than Bu Qingshun's. Nie Tian had been injured in the fight with Bu Qingshun. Moreover, the man in black had attacked him suddenly. It was not surprising that he was injured. Why do you want to kill Bu Qingshun? At this moment, the man in black moved. He took a step forward and the space seemed to tremble. The space around him seemed to be pulled and tightened. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it was suffocating. He can kill me. Why can't I kill him? Nie Tian frowned and replied coldly. Even if the man in black was strong, he was not afraid. He killed you. The man in black sneered and said, What I saw was that you didn't stop after you injured him. You wanted to kill him. Is it true that in your eyes, killing is the only thing that counts as strength? Huh? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. It seemed that the man in black thought that he was a bloodthirsty person. You are Feng Wanhong. At this moment, Shang Lai, who had been stunned for a long time, looked at the man in black. He suddenly reacted and shouted excitedly. Feng Wanhong? Luo Ho was surprised and said, Feng Wanhong, the second-ranked young master of the 9 princes? Chapter 32:25. When Nie Tian heard Shang Lai and Luo Ho mention the black-clothed cultivator's name, Feng Wanhong, his first thought was that the black-clothed cultivator was from the Feng clan. He already knew that the Feng clan held a high position in the Myriad Domain Guild. Moreover, Feng Wanhong was ranked second among the 9 young masters, so he was most likely from the Feng clan. High up in the sky, Feng Wanhong swept his cold gaze over Shang Lai and Luo Ho. He did not speak. Instead, he fixed his gaze on Nie Tian and said, You killed Bu Qingshun. What else do you have to say? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He smiled faintly and said, What do you want me to say? Should I let Bu Qingshun kill me just because he wanted to kill me? Bu Qingshun was already heavily injured earlier. How could he kill you? Feng Wanhong's gaze darkened as he growled cold. He firmly believed that Nie Tian's bloodthirstiness had led to Bu Qingshun's death. Actually, he did not have much of a friendship with Bu Qingshun. However, he did not like how Nie Tian could remain so calm after killing him. I already explained to you. Bu Qingshun wanted to kill me first. I had no choice but to attack. Nie Tian said gravely. If I had lost the battle just now, Bu Qingshun would not have let me off either. Nonsense. Feng Wanhong's expression darkened. He growled. You killed Bu Qingshun and still want to quibble. A cruel person like you should not live. You want to kill me? Nie Tian frowned and his expression darkened. Yes. Feng Wanhong's eyes flashed with a cold, murderous intent as he nodded. Young Master Wanhong, you've misunderstood. Bu Qingshun killed young Master Xiansu first, and then tried to kill all of us. Brother Nietian couldn't stand it anymore, so he made a move. Seeing that Feng Wanhong was about to make a move, Shanglai instantly grew nervous and shouted, Bu Qingshun killed Xiansu? Feng Wanhong's expression darkened when he heard Shanglai's words. Xiansu was the same as Bu Qingshun. They were both 9 princes, but he was actually killed by Bu Qingshun. This was something that Feng Wanhong had never expected. In the next moment, Feng Wanhong's gaze turned cold as he looked at Shanglai and asked, Who are you? Shanglai calmed down, bowed slightly, and said, I am Shang from Yinyang branch. You just said that Bu Qingshun killed Xiansu. Is that true? Feng Wanhong's eyes became even gloomier as he asked in a cold tone. I saw it with my own eyes. It's absolutely true. Shanglai nodded heavily and said, The martial practitioners of the Spirit J branch, where young Master Xiansu is from, and the martial practitioners of the Profound Firmament branch, where his cousin Hua Qingdong is from, have all seen it. They can all testify. Feng Wanhong's face suddenly sank. He looked at Nietian and couldn't help but say in his heart, Did I really blame him wrongly? Nietian stood in place, not saying a word. He didn't want to explain too much to Feng Wanhong, as it would seem like he had really done something wrong. Nietian, even if Bu Qingshun wanted to kill you, you shouldn't have tried to kill him after severely injuring him. After a while, Feng Wanhong looked at Nietian and said, I am acquainted with Bu Qingshun. He has always been very upright in front of me. He doesn't seem like a cruel, murderous person. Nietian couldn't help but sneer when he heard Feng Wanhong's words. Feng Wanhong was ranked second among the 9 great young masters, while Bu Qingshun was only ranked 6th. Of course, Bu Qingshun wouldn't dare to be arrogant in front of Feng Wanhong. Feng Wanhong seemed very strong, but he knew nothing about the dangers of the world and the unfathomable nature of people. Nietian guessed that Feng Wanhong must have been cultivating in seclusion for too long, so his brain had become rigid. What are you laughing at? Feng Wanhong's face sank when he saw Nietian suddenly laugh. He asked coldly, I would like to ask young Master Wanhong, when was the last time you saw Bu Qingshun? Nietian's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked in a calm tone. I've been in seclusion for 10,000 years. The last time I saw Bu Qingshun was more than 10,000 years ago. Feng Wanhong glanced at Nietian with a doubtful expression, but he still answered, 10,000 years. Nietian couldn't help but smile again. Do you know how long 10,000 years is, and how much can be changed in 10,000 years? You have no idea what kind of person Bu Qingshun is. I won't explain anything to you. If you still want to kill me, then let's fight. I, Nietian, am not afraid of you. QL11 Feng Wanhong's eyes flickered when he sensed Nietian's aura and the determination in his eyes. His heart was filled with astonishment. At this moment, he felt that Nietian was not a cruel and murderous person. A person like that would not have such a righteous aura. Nietian, I'll believe you for now, but we will have to be together from now on. When we leave the Tianxing mountain range, I will bring you to the disciplinary hall for interrogation. Feng Wanhong's eyes darkened after some thought. Sure. The corner of Nietian's lips curled up into a faint smile. Feng Wanhong's strength was not bad, so it would be a good thing if he followed them. Seeing that both Feng Wanhong and Nietian had calmed down, Shanglai and the others felt as if a heavy stone had been lifted from their hearts. Young Master Wanhong, let's go. Nietian glanced at the dense forest in the distance and said with a faint smile. The Ghost Emperor had already broken the killing formation in the forest during the battle earlier, so they could enter now. You want to enter the Tianxing Forbidden Ground? Feng Wanhong asked with a frown. Forbidden Ground? Nietian was also startled. He stared at the forest in front of him and laughed. Could it be that there are some secrets hidden in this forest? The forest in front of you is the Tianxing Forbidden Formation. It was set up by the elders of the Myriad Domain Association. Behind the formation is the forbidden ground of the Tianxing mountain range. No one is allowed to enter. Feng Wanhong said solemnly. Nietian's gaze sharpened. He was even more curious as to what secrets lay behind the Tianxing forbidden formation. What if I insist on entering? Nie Tian's eyes flickered as he looked at Feng Wanhong. The purple-robed woman's aura disappeared into the forest. It was obvious that she had entered. There was an indescribable relationship between the purple-robed woman and the heaven and earth sacred vein. Nie Tian believed that as long as he found the purple-robed woman, he would be able to find the heaven and earth sacred vein. No. Feng Wanhong's expression darkened when he saw that Nie Tian was really going to enter the Tianxing forbidden formation. He growled. No one is allowed to enter the Tianxing forbidden ground without the president's permission. Nie Tian frowned. He didn't expect that Feng Wanhong would actually stop him from entering the Tianxing forbidden ground. Lord Nie Tian, I think it's better if we don't go in. Luo Ho saw that the atmosphere had suddenly become tense, so he hurried to Nie Tian's side and whispered, Why? Nie Tian was stunned for a moment and asked in return, You see. Luo Ho looked at Feng Wanhong with a troubled expression. He didn't know what to say. Save me. At this time, a mournful cry for help suddenly came from afar. What followed was a blood-curdling scream. Nie Tian and Feng Wanhong's expressions changed at the same time as they exchanged glances. Feng Wanhong didn't hesitate. His figure moved, and he flew towards the place where the scream was coming from. Nie Tian thought for a moment and also followed. Chapter 32:26. Feng Wanhong and Nie Tian arrived one after the other and saw the masked martialist in the air. What a strong, murderous intent! Feng Wanhong's eyes trembled as he looked at the masked martialist. He could not help but exclaim inwardly. A terrifying, murderous aura surged from the body of the masked martialist. It was sharp and cold, as if it could tear everything to shreds. As he stood there, the surrounding space was filled with a terrifying, murderous aura. It was as if his entire being was a murderous abyss. Nie Tian could not help but narrow his eyes in shock. He could sense a strong, dangerous aura from the masked martialist. He had never felt such a feeling before, even when he was in front of Kuyo Onaguchi. Kill! At this moment, the masked martialist suddenly roared like thunder, like the roar of a wild beast. A strong, murderous aura surged wildly between heaven and earth. Boom! 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 A strong aura appeared from his body in the next instant. It was as if thousands of demons were dancing wildly. Terrifying demonic claws appeared and attacked the crowd below. On the ground, dozens of martial artists were fleeing in panic. However, the demonic claws had locked onto them and were attacking them. Following that, the demonic claws descended and miserable screams resounded. The scene was extremely tragic and bloody. Nie Tian frowned, and his expression changed. He recognized that the martialists who were being slaughtered were the martialists from the Lingyu and mysterious firmament branches. It seemed like they had not run far before the masked martialists chased them all the way here. Bastard! Feng Wanhong's eyes trembled when he saw the scene before him. He roared, and his aura burst out like thunder. He could not believe that there could be such a violent person in the world, killing people as if it was child's play. Boom! The instant Feng Wanhong's aura erupted, a terrifying snowstorm appeared around his body. Following that, a horrifying icy chi surged out like a tsunami. Countless sharp ice spikes appeared, covering the sky and the ground, killing everything in their path as they charged at the masked cultivator. The grim-faced cultivator could not help but frown when he felt the cold chi pressing down on him. He muttered with a smile, Are the ants of the realms this strong? Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly as he looked at Feng Wanhong. He did not expect the latter's strength to be so terrifying. However, what surprised him even more were the words of the masked martial artist. Realm ants? QL11, could it be that the grimmest martial artist wasn't from the realm? Boom! Chi, chi, chi. Right at this moment, the masked cultivator raised his arm, and a terrifying demonic claw appeared, directly shattering the ice that filled the sky. Feng Wanhong's figure was pushed back 1,000 meters by the impact of the berserk energy. He looked extremely miserable. Seeing this scene, Nietion's expression couldn't help but change, and he was extremely shocked. Feng Wanhong's strength was already close to peak false sacred realm. He was not much weaker than Kuyo Onaguchi and the others, yet he was knocked back by the masked cultivator with a single palm strike. The masked cultivator's battle strength was terrifying. Could this masked man be a Sage Realm martial artist? Nietion's eyes trembled, and he was secretly shocked. The masked cultivator had already made it clear that he was not from the realms, so it was not surprising that his strength had reached the Sage Realm. However, if he was a Sage Realm martial artist, it would be troublesome. Right at this moment, a series of miserable cries came from the ground below. Dozens of martial artists were instantly killed by the demonic claw. You deserve to die. Feng Wanhong's expression suddenly changed when he saw this, and his veins popped out. He roared like thunder, and his entire body was filled with rage. Streams of cold chi were released, and the space within a radius of tens of thousands of meters instantly became cold. It was as though the world was about to be frozen. Realm Ant, are you angry? The masked cultivator looked at Feng Wanhong and smiled coldly, his eyes cold. It was obvious that he did not take Feng Wanhong seriously at all. He only treated the latter as an ant. At this moment, Shang Lai and the others arrived. When they saw the scene in the sky, they were so shocked that they could not speak. Brother Shang, step back. Nietion suddenly turned around and asked Shang Lai and the others to leave. The battle between Feng Wanhong and the masked cultivator shook heaven and earth, and the surrounding space became extremely dangerous. Kill! Feng Wanhong's aura condensed in the sky, and he roared like a wild beast. He slammed his palm down, and suddenly, a sharp ice blade appeared and slashed at the masked cultivator. Swoosh! Crack, crack, crack! At this moment, the space became extremely cold. Everywhere the ice blade passed, the space was frozen, and a terrifying cold chi filled every corner of the sky. What a terrifying cold chi! Nietion frowned, and he was shocked. Feng Wanhong's strength was stronger than he had imagined. Ant, you're seeking death. The masked cultivator narrowed his eyes as he looked at Feng Wanhong, and a cold intent surged out. Then, he directly sent out a palm strike, and a black light appeared in the void. It did not look strong, but its aura seemed endless, as if it could devour everything. In my eyes, the cultivators of any realm are like ants. As for ants, they are meant to be trampled. They cannot resist. The masked cultivator sneered, and his cold laughter reverberated in the space. Immediately, the world seemed like it would collapse. Disdain surged in his eyes, and he looked like a peerless king, looking down on everything. How is this possible? When Nietion saw this scene, he could not help being stunned, and he cried out in his heart. He sensed that the masked cultivator's strength was the same as Feng Wanhong's, a rank 9 pseudo-sage. However, the masked cultivator's aura was far stronger than Feng Wanhong's. Moreover, the power that the masked cultivator released seemed to have a strong suppressive effect on Feng Wanhong. Sage-ranked martial technique. At this moment, the Ghost Emperor's voice rang out, and he exclaimed, "This fellow is using a sage-ranked martial technique. He really isn't from the realm." When Nietion heard the Ghost Emperor's words, his expression immediately sank. No wonder the masked cultivator was so strong. It turned out that he had used a sage-ranked martial technique. In a battle between cultivators, apart from strength and talent, the strength of the martial technique was also crucial. In a situation where both sides' strength was similar, the cultivator who grasped a higher martial technique would obviously have an absolute advantage. Feng Wanhong's aura did not lose to the masked cultivator, but his martial technique was clearly incomparable to the masked cultivator. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. At this moment, the black light in the sky suddenly exploded like a flower blooming. It actually condensed into a sinister demonic claw and forcefully bombarded the ice blade. Immediately, a cracking sound came out from the void. The ice blade was directly torn apart by the demonic claw. In the next instant, a black light appeared and attacked Feng Wanhong. Chapter 32:27. Who's the ant? Realm and die. The masked cultivator's cold voice rang out in the sky, sinister and arrogant. As long as that black light landed, Feng Wanhong would definitely die. Heavenly Sword reverses the sun. However, right at this moment, a low and deep furious roar sounded out, and then a figure charged into the sky. The figure hadn't arrived yet, but the sword image had, and it forcefully shattered the annihilation blacklight and saved Feng Wanhong's life. Feng Wanhong's eyes trembled as he looked at the silver-haired figure in the distance in shock. He had not expected the person who made a move at the critical moment to be Nie Tian. He had not expected Nie Tian to be able to block the masked cultivator's attack. The masked cultivator could not help but be stunned by this sudden scene. His expression instantly turned sinister, and his eyes glared at Nie Tian like a venomous wolf. He could no longer control his rage and killing intent. However, when he sensed Nie Tian's strength, his expression was instantly replaced by shock. The strength of a rank 4 pseudo-sage? The masked cultivator could not believe his eyes. The person who blocked his attack was actually a rank 4 pseudo-sage cultivator. A rank 4 pseudo-sage cultivator from a realm had blocked the attack of a rank 9 pseudo-sage cultivator from the sacred world. Was this possible? "Ant, who are you?" In the next moment, the masked cultivator calmed down. His eyes turned extremely gloomy, as if he wanted to swallow Nie Tian whole. "The person who will kill you." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and his eyes turned extremely cold. He spat out those 3 words coldly, his killing intent seemingly solid and extremely sharp. "Kill me." The masked cultivator's eyes sank, and then he laughed wildly. He shouted in disdain. "A mere rank 4 pseudo-sage realm, and wants to kill me? What a joke." The arrogant laughter showed that the masked cultivator did not take Nie Tian seriously at all. With his status and strength, there was indeed no need for him to take Nie Tian seriously. "And do you really think that you have the ability to fight me just because you blocked one of my moves? You'll soon know that ants are destined to be trampled." The grimace cultivator laughed maniacally. His aura surged crazily, transforming into berserk demonic power that filled the sky, attacking the void. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He smiled cold and said, "You call others ants, then what are you? Today, I'll let you know that even ants have dignity, and that ants will resist. Today, I will step on your head and let you have a taste of what it feels like to be trampled by an ant." The deep voice was insolent and ruthless. At this moment, Nie Tian was really angry. This grim-faced cultivator kept calling Shao Chun an ant, not stopping. It was as if, in his eyes, the people of the realms were ants that he could trample on at will. Today, Nie Tian would let the grim-faced cultivator understand that even an ant had its own dignity and must resist. "Ant, you're courting death." The grim-faced cultivator stared at Nie Tian blankly for a moment before he reacted. With a roar, he released a berserk power. Endless demonic chi surged toward Nie Tian like a tsunami. 9 limits of the starry sky, sky slash. Nie Tian's eyes darkened as he released his sword intent in an instant. The starry sky slashed out, and a terrifying sword shadow rushed toward the endless demonic chi. At the same time, his figure also rushed over. Nie Tian. Feng Wanhong's eyes trembled when he saw this scene, and he exclaimed in shock. He had never imagined that Nie Tian would be so ferocious. Nie Tian was shrouded in demonic chi in midair, and countless bloody wounds appeared on his body. The demonic chi looked vigorous, but it was actually very sharp. At that moment, Nie Tian felt as if he were being torn apart by countless sharp blades, and his whole body was on the verge of falling apart. "Fool, you only have the strength of a rank 4 pseudo-sage. How dare you rush into my demonic chi? You're courting death." The grim-faced cultivator roared violently. The demonic chi in the surrounding space contained a terrifying strangulation power. Even a rank 9 pseudo-sage cultivator would not be able to withstand it, let alone Nie Tian, who had the strength of a rank 4 pseudo-sage. Boom! However, before he could finish laughing, a sword shadow broke through the demonic chi and whistled out. Bang! Caught off guard, the grim-faced cultivator was sent flying. Although he was not injured, he was in a sorry state. In the next moment, Nietion's figure broke through the demonic chi, and his sword intent soared in the sky like a heaven-defying giant sword, sharp and terrifying. You? The grim-faced cultivator looked at Nietion in horror. Nietion, who was a rank 4 pseudo-sage, actually broke through the demonic chi. How is this possible? Oomph. Is this all you've got? Tianling sneered. His eyes were cold and filled with disdain as he said loudly, "Now tell me, who's the real ant here?" Damn it! The grim-faced cultivator's eyes flickered, and he let out a roar. He suddenly reached out his hand, and a boundless demonic chi appeared. Following it, a black ray was fired, which tore the space apart and attacked Nietion. Boom! The terrifying black ray turned into a giant beast of darkness that pounced at Nietion fiercely. Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly, and he reacted instantly. He slashed out with his sword, and a pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back as he retreated. However, he was still a step too late, and a bloody wound was left on his chest. Nietion. Feng Wanhong's eyes trembled when he saw this, and he exclaimed. He was defeated by the grim-faced cultivator with a single move, and his martial heart was on the verge of collapsing. However, seeing that Nietion, who was only a 4th-grade false saint, was actually fighting back, his blood boiled with excitement. "Ant, how are you going to fight me with your strength?" The grim-faced cultivator let out a cold laugh and roared furiously. "Is that so?" Tianling let out a cold laugh, and his blood chi surged. The sword intent surrounding him became extremely sharp, as if it was going to tear everything apart, burning his blood chi, activating his sword intent, and pushing his martial physique to the limit. Nietion was going to unleash an even greater force. "Nietion, I'll fight alongside you." Feng Wanhong's blood boiled when he saw this. He let out a deep roar, and the icy chi around his body surged like a raging tsunami. Oomph. Two ants together are still ants. The grim-faced cultivator's gaze was extremely cold as he yelled in a deep voice. He had underestimated Nietion's strength, which was why he ended up in such a sorry state. But now, he was serious. So Nietion and Feng Wanhong had no chance. Sky-devouring blood, kill. At this moment, Nietion let out a low roar, and his figure instantly moved like a shocking rainbow. The blood-colored sword whistled through the air, and the entire area was filled with the smell of blood. Kill! At the same time, Feng Wanhong's voice sounded out, and it was furious like thunder. An icy blade tore through space, and it was extremely murderous. Chapter 32:28. Side by side. Boom, boom. High up in the sky, the crimson sword shadow and the icy blade slashed out at the same time. Heaven and earth trembled, and the scene was bloody and somber. Oomph. Ants will always be ants. Their strength is only SOSO. The mass cultivator was not afraid of Nietion and Feng Wanhong's joint attack. Instead, he sneered, and the aura around his body surged slowly. He was like a sleeping beast that would explode with terrifying strength in the next moment. Boom! In the next instant, just as the crimson sword shadow and the icy blade were about to land, the mass cultivator released the demonic aura around him. Suddenly, a huge demonic shadow appeared, and the void trembled. Rumble, rumble. The crimson sword shadow and the icy blade landed at the same time, but they shattered directly. Under the protection of the demonic shadow, the masked cultivator was unscathed. On the other hand, Nietion and Feng Wanhong were pushed back thousands of meters by the huge impact. After the two stabilized themselves, their faces were as pale as paper, and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. The two exchanged glances, their expressions ugly. The masked cultivator's strength had exceeded their expectations. "Two ants, is this your strength? Is this your resistance?" The masked cultivator sneered, and the demonic shadow around him expanded, reaching 10,000 meters in an instant. The void was stretched taut, as though it was about to be torn apart. Shanghai and the rest were tens of thousands of meters away. When they saw the scene in the void, they were dumbfounded, unable to believe their eyes. It was hard to imagine that the masked cultivator's strength was actually this strong. The Tianqing Mountain Range was originally only open to the cultivators of the Myriad Domain Guild. Why was the masked cultivator able to enter? Who was the masked cultivator, and why did he appear in the Tianqing Mountain Range? A series of questions arose, and no one could understand. Perhaps the masked cultivator was related to the purple-clad woman in the sacred veins. Two ants died. Just at this moment, the grim-faced cultivator roared, and the demonic figure instantly moved. The heavens and earth trembled, and a terrifying force appeared, like a raging wave, pressing down on Yetian and Feng Wanhong. The ultimate killing move of the proud sword tactics, the soul of heaven, the soul of heaven, the soul of heaven, the unyielding soul, God-destroying blow, burning the world. Yetian's eyes narrowed slightly. What emerged in his eyes was not fear, but a strong desire to fight. Ice Universe Art, 9 Dragon Ice, I. At the same time, Feng Wanhong roared furiously while the icy cold energy in his entire body rose to the limit, and then he slapped out furiously with his palm, causing the heavens and the earth to tremble. Boom! Boom, boom, boom. In the next instant, a 10,000-meter-long crimson sword and 9-headed ice dragon appeared in the sky at the same time. In a battle of life and death, victory and defeat could be decided in an instant. Yet Tian and Feng Wanhong naturally wouldn't hold back any longer, and they could only fight with all their strength. Two ants, I have underestimated your strength, but ants will always be ants. You will never be able to overturn the heavens. The grim-faced cultivator looked at Tian and Feng Wanhong and laughed cold. The demonic figure around him moved, and the violent momentum was like thousands of demons dancing wildly, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Boom, boom, boom. In the next instant, the demonic figure slapped down with his palm, and there was a sound like a tsunami, as if the mountains and rivers were tumbling and the heavens and earth were collapsing. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately, 3 extremely violent forces collided together, and the void tumbled like boiling water. The whole world seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Chi, chi, chi. The terrifying power formed endless waves in the sky, crashing into the void. The endless power clashed together. It was extremely terrifying. After a moment, the Crimson Sword and 9-headed ice dragon collapsed at the same time, and it was extremely tragic. Bang! Bang! In the void, there were 2 muffled sounds, and the figures of Tian and Feng Wanhong flew out at the same time, leaving 2 streaks of blood in the air. On the other hand, the grim-faced cultivator was as stable as Mount Tai, not moving at all. Tian and Feng Wanhong stabilized their bodies, and their bodies were already dripping with blood, and their faces were extremely pale. The grim-faced cultivator's demonic figure was too strong. After the violent momentum erupted, it was like a mountain or a sea, unshakable. Tian, this person's martial technique is too powerful. The demonic figure's momentum is not much weaker than that of a Sage Realm cultivator. Your only chance now is to attack the demonic figure and get close to him. At this time, the Ghost Emperor's voice sounded, reminding Tian, use the advantage of your martial body to defeat him. Tian's eyes narrowed, and he immediately understood the Ghost Emperor's meaning. If it was a head-on fight, even if Tian and Feng Wanhong joined forces, they would not be a match for the grim-faced cultivator. However, once they got close, Tian's martial body was strong enough to threaten the grim-faced cultivator. Even if the grim-faced cultivator cultivated Sage-ranked martial techniques and Sage-ranked martial techniques, his martial body might not be as strong as Tian's. As long as Tian could get within 10 meters of the grim-faced cultivator, his chances of victory would be very high. 2 ants, your strength has exceeded my expectations. Unfortunately, you are realm cultivators, lowly existences. You will never be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with me. The grim-faced cultivator's voice resounded in the void, filled with disdain and mockery. He had a very high opinion of himself and viewed the martial practitioners of the realms as ants. My next palm strike will take your lives. Following that, the grim-faced cultivator roared, and the demonic figure instantly moved. A palm strike ruthlessly slammed down, and a violent force descended from the sky, covering the sky and earth. The world shook as if it was going to collapse. Feng Wanhong felt the boundless pressure, and his eyes involuntarily trembled. His face was filled with unconcealable fear. At this moment, he looked at Nie Tian. The latter had a resolute expression, as if he did not know what fear was. Feng Wanhong could not imagine how a person's temperament could be so strong. Facing a cultivator stronger than him, he showed no fear. Feng Wanhong, you have been in seclusion for 10,000 years to become a strong cultivator, not an ant that can be trampled by others. Now, show me your true strength. At this moment, Nie Tian suddenly spoke. His deep voice resounded in the void like thunder, rumbling in Feng Wanhong's ears. Feng Wanhong was ranked second among the 9 princes. He had been in seclusion for 10,000 years to become a strong cultivator, not an ant. Nie Tian's words were like thunder, awakening Feng Wanhong completely. Feng Wanhong, cover me. In the next moment, Nie Tian spoke again. Immediately, astral soul wings appeared on his back and spread out. They were nearly 1,000 meters long, as dazzling as falling stars. Even the most terrifying darkness could not conceal such a radiance. Whoosh! Then, the astral soul wings on Nie Tian's back suddenly vibrated. His figure was like an arrow released from a bow, rushing towards the demonic figure. Nie Tian. Feng Wanhong's eyes trembled. Who would have thought that Nie Tian would directly rush over? However, his reaction was very fast. The cold chi around his body instantly surged, condensing into a huge ice dragon that whistled out, blocking Nie Tian's head like a shield. Chapter 32:29. Stomp. Ant, go to hell. The grim-faced cultivator roared in rage and sent out a palm strike. Space trembled violently, as if it was about to shatter. Kaboom! Bang! In the next moment, the violent demon chi fell. The frost dragon could not withstand it and crumbled, turning into cold air and dissipating. Roar! However, at this time, another dragon roared and another ice dragon appeared, attacking the endless demon chi. Roar! 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 Following that, an even more terrifying dragon roar sounded. A total of 7 ice dragons appeared and attacked the demon chi, buying time for Nie Tian. Feng Wanhong did not hesitate to ignite his blood chi to form 9 ice dragons to protect Nie Tian. He did not know what Nie Tian was going to do, but this was all he could do for Nie Tian. He had already reached his limit. Ant, you overestimate yourself. The grim-faced cultivator roared angrily. The gigantic palm of the demon's shadow fell, and a violent roar sounded in the air. One by one, the ice dragons collapsed. Feng Wanhong's figure was sent flying. Fresh blood sprayed into the air. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying demonic palm appeared and was about to land on Nie Tian's body. Even though Nie Tian's martial body was strong, he could not withstand such a terrifying palm. In the distance, Shang Lai, Luo Ho, and the others watched this scene with trembling eyes. Boom! At this moment, between life and death, Nie Tian's body shook, and an endless amount of dragon chi gushed out. In the sea of dragon chi, the figure of a crimson dragon appeared, and the vast dragon might surged into the void, incomparably terrifying. The moment the crimson dragon appeared, the grim-faced cultivator felt the terrifying power. He could not help but squint his eyes and exclaim, Boom! Hum! In the next moment, the demon shadow's gigantic palm landed and the void roared. Then, a low rumble sounded. The crimson dragon had blocked the powerful attack. The demonic shadow's huge body swayed and stagnated for a moment. At this moment, Nie Tian had already rushed over. His demonic eye opened, and a sharp blade formed from pure ocular force whizzed out. The sharpness of the blade spread out, and the void seemed to be directly torn apart. What aura is this? The grim-faced cultivator instantly felt a dangerous aura appear, causing his eyes to tremble involuntarily as he exclaimed in shock. Crack! At this moment, the eye power blade landed on the demonic shadow and tore a hole in it. This is the moment. A fervent light flashed in Nietion's eyes. He was pleasantly surprised. The wings on his back flapped, and he became like a beam of light, piercing through the demonic figure and instantly closing in on the masked cultivator. What do you want? When the masked cultivator saw Nietion charging over like a ferocious beast, his eyes trembled as he shouted, "I'll kill you!" The corners of Nietion's mouth twitched as he spat out 2 words coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "You think you can do that?" The grim-faced cultivator instantly calmed down and growled. "Do you think you can kill me just because you're close to me? I'm a rank 9 pseudo-sacred expert with a strong martial body. How can a rank 4 pseudo-sacred ant like you compare me?" By this time, the grim-faced cultivator had already understood Nietion's plan, but he remained very calm. He did not think that Nietion's martial experience was stronger than his. "Is that so?" Nietion sneered. His figure moved in an instant and directly arrived less than 10 meters away from the grim-faced cultivator. Boom! In the next instant, he directly punched out. Pure and terrifying power erupted from his martial body. The instant the fist shadow whizzed, he was already face to face with the grim-faced cultivator. The grim-faced cultivator's eyes trembled. He did not expect Nietion to really dare to rush over. In a hurry, he raised his arm and punched out. Bang! The 2 fists collided and sparks flew in all directions. The crisp sound of metal and stone colliding could be heard in the air. It was as if it was not 2 fists colliding, but steel. At Nietion and the grim-faced cultivator's level, the physical body of a martial artist was already stronger than metal and stone. Immediately, the grim-faced cultivator took a few steps back, but Nietion did not move at all. Instead, he took a step forward and punched out again. "You?" The grim-faced cultivator cried out in horror, his eyes filled with disbelief. The strength of Nietion's martial body far exceeded his expectations. He dare not believe it. Was the person fighting with him at this moment really a rank 4 pseudo-sacred expert? Crack! Nietion's punch landed directly on the grim-faced cultivator's chest, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard in the air. With the power of one punch, Nietion smashed the grim-faced cultivator's sternum. The grim-faced cultivator retreated a few meters, his eyes trembling with horror. Could the silver-haired cultivator standing in front of him be a monster? "This is your strength?" The killing intent in Nietion's eyes soared, terrifying, and he said in a cold voice, "If you say I'm an ant, then what are you? Aren't you worse than an ant?" At the same time, Nietion's figure moved again at the same time, punching out with both fists, whistling with the wind, fierce like a wild beast. He had grasped the initiative, of course. He would not give the grim-faced cultivator a chance to rest. Bang! 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 Then, a series of muffled sounds came out, and Nietion's fists bombarded the grim-faced cultivator like a rainstorm. Just because we're from the realm, we're ants? Just because you're from the holy realm, you can be high and mighty? In your eyes, the martial artists of the realm are all trash, all dregs, right? Nietion roared as he punched, each punch hitting the flesh, incomparably ferocious. The grim-faced cultivator was forced to retreat again and again, his body dripping with blood, countless bones broken. Today, I'll let you know, even ants have dignity, will resist, and will have their moments of defiance. And you arrogant upper-class people will also be trampled by ants one day. Nietion roared like thunder, clenching his fists tightly and punching at the grim-faced cultivator's mask. Bang! In the next instant, the mask directly shattered, revealing a terrified, horrified, and bloody face. The face was very young, very handsome, but at the moment it was very ugly. The bones in his body were broken, but the pain in his body was far less than the pain in his heart. In his eyes, Tion had always been an ant-like existence, but now he was being humiliated by this ant. This feeling of humiliation was driving him crazy. However, Tion's tyranny was not over. It had just begun. High and mighty is it? I'll let you have a taste of what it feels like to be trampled by others. With a bellow, Tion leaped into the air, took a step forward, and stomped down on the grim-faced martial artist's head. You? The grim-faced cultivator's eyes widened, and his face stiffened. He did not expect Tion to really dare to trample on him. Tion's gaze was as cold as steel and extremely firm. So what if you're a realm cultivator? So what if you're a ninth-grade pseudo-sacred? I, Tion, will trample on this kind of arrogant scum. How dare you? At that instant, a low roar echoed in the sky, and a black-robed figure appeared in the distance, flying over at an incredible speed. Chapter 32:30. Tion looked up into the sky. A grimacing martialist appeared in his vision, causing his expression to darken and his expression to change. However, this did not affect his movements at all. He directly stomped his foot heavily on the head of the grimacing martialist. On the head. He stomped on the head of the grimacing martialist. Kaboom! The grimacing martialist felt his head explode as half of his face caved in and became a bloody mess. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The humiliation in his heart had reached its peak. He had never imagined that there would be a day when he would be trampled by a realm martialist. Aren't you high and mighty? Didn't you say that I'm an ant? Didn't you want to crush me? Aren't you very awesome and powerful? Now that I'm stepping on your head, do you still dare to be arrogant in front of me? Tion growled like a wild beast. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stomped even harder. The grimacing martialist's face had already become distorted. In the distance, Feng Wanhong, Shang Lai, Luo Ho, Shang Nana, and the others watched this scene with stiff expressions. They could not believe their eyes at all. Tion, a realm martialist with the strength of a fourth-order pseudo-sacred, was actually trampling on a ninth-order pseudo-sacred powerhouse from the sacred world. This was not just trampling on the face of the grimacing martialist, but it was also trampling on his dignity and martial heart. This guy is so scary. Feng Wanhong's heart trembled as he looked at the current Tion. Not only was Tion strong, but he also seemed to have a terrifying demonic nature in his heart. A genius from the sacred world? What a joke. Tianling laughed continuously as his body surged with a murderous aura. The coldness in his eyes made him look like a demon. Don't kill him. Just at this moment, the cultivator with the ghost mask who had suddenly appeared felt Tion's killing intent from 10,000 meters away. He shouted and immediately attacked, sending out a palm strike. The air rumbled, and a sharp light was released. It was extremely sharp and murderous, and it attacked Tion. I will kill him. Tion's eyes narrowed slightly, but he smiled coldly. He stomped down fiercely, and instantly a bloody mess of flesh and blood appeared. The ghost-faced martial artist under his feet actually had his head forcibly crushed under his foot. QL11 Tion looked down and happened to see the ghastly masked cultivator's eyeballs flying out. His eyes were filled with humiliation, unwillingness, and fear. One could imagine the pain in his heart before he died. After killing the masked cultivator, Tion's figure instantly moved, explosively retreating a kilometer away, dodging the attack of the sharp light in the air. However, he was still affected by the aftershock of the sharp light, and a glaring wound appeared on his chest. However, after Xiao Chan stabilized himself, he did not care about the wound on his chest. Instead, he looked up at the cultivator with the ghost mask in the distance, and his face sank slightly. Even though they were separated by 10,000 meters, he could still clearly feel the wrath of the masked cultivator. That pair of bloodshot eyes seemed to want to tear him to shreds. Bastard! In the next moment, the masked cultivator roared like a wild beast and took a step forward, causing the void to tremble violently, as if it was about to collapse. He could not believe that a martial artist from a realm had actually tortured and killed his companion in front of him. And do you know who you just killed? You're dead meat if you dare to touch the people of the 10,000 ghosts flowing together. The masked cultivator roared as he ran wildly. A terrifying killing intent spread in the void and instantly enveloped Nietion. 10,000 ghosts flowing together. Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly, and he remembered the name in his heart. This name was obviously the organization that the two masked cultivators were from. However, he did not understand why this organization from the sacred world would appear in the Tianxing mountain range. However, this was clearly not the time to consider this question. Die! In an instant, the masked cultivator charged wildly, and a violent force appeared in the void, blasting towards Nietion. It was extremely terrifying. Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly, and he slashed out with his sword, and the sword's shadow surged like a dragon, blasting out. Rumble! The violent force fell and directly shattered the sword shadow. Bang! Then, with a dull sound, Nietion's figure was directly sent flying. Nietion! Feng Wanhong saw this scene and exclaimed. The masked cultivator who had just arrived seemed to be even more terrifying than the masked cultivator from before. Moreover, Nietion's strength was almost depleted, and coupled with his severe injuries, it was almost impossible for him to fight with this masked cultivator again. Brat, how dare you kill the people of the 10,000 ghosts flowing together? Killing you is already letting you off lightly. The masked cultivator roared like thunder, and once again he struck out with his palm, and a terrifying palm force burst out, as if tens of thousands of lightning bolts were moving at the same time. It was incomparably violent, and the entire void trembled as if it was about to collapse. The masked cultivator's strength was too strong, and a casual strike from him had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. You realm martial artists are all ants. Ants only deserve to be trampled. The masked cultivator's murderous intent was heavy, and he roared wildly, as if the heavens and earth were about to collapse in an instant. Bullshit! Even the weakest person has to live with dignity. Nietion's eyes flickered, and he let out a low roar, and the blood in his body surged. In an instant, his martial body was pushed to the limit, and he raised the starry heavenly slash. The surging sword intent on the blade was incomparably sharp, as if it contained the power to tear through everything. Ants? What was an ant? Even if one's background was lowly, one had to live like a human. If one had no dignity, what was the point of such a life? Buzz! In the next instant, a sonorous sword cry resounded in the void, piercing through the 9 heavens. Suddenly, a terrible sword shadow appeared, and it was like a giant that could support the heavens and earth, and it soared into the sky. Dignity? The masked cultivator sneered, and he roared wildly. Mere ants don't deserve dignity. I will let you understand how weak your so-called dignity is. As his voice fell, a surging force flowed out of the masked cultivator's body, as if his body was surging with an endless ocean, capable of suppressing everything. Boom! In the next moment, he slammed his palm down, and a terrible force rolled down, pressing down on Nietion. The void trembled, and the heavens and earth shook. Boom! Hua hua hua! The violent and boundless forces collided, and the space was filled with the sound of an explosion, as if the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Realm Ant, I will let you see how big the gap between you and me is. The masked cultivator roared, and a terrible force spread out of his body, oppressing the void, and rushed toward Nietion. Bloodline power! Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly, and his figure instantly retreated. In the void, he smelled a trace of bloodline aura, which was incomparably surging, like a vast ocean. Boom! Bang, bang, bang. In the next moment, a terrible force exploded, and the blood-colored sword shadow could no longer withstand it, and it collapsed with a loud bang. Nietion frowned, and the wings on his back shook, and he frantically retreated. At this time, the masked cultivator rushed over, and his whole body's aura was crazy and violent. Die! Die! Die!